Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Toss to Reese, hit in the end zone, and he is going down. Kendall Daniels was in there first, and it's a safety for the Cowboys.
The Sikkim 365 Radio Friday show is brought to you by Bird Culchin Ford.
Final play of the game. Richardson pressured, throws at the last moment, and it's intercepted by the Volunteers. There will be no comeback. Tennessee wins it.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Daniels, keeping it left side, touchdown, Kansas.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Extra coming, Beavers pick it up, and that's a pick six. Clark Phillips, twice and a quarter.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Play fake to the end zone. Up, caught, and a touchdown right out of the gate for BYU. Ethan Erickson.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go as we close out the week, but the weekend is coming up with some great college football games. There are some games tonight as well. We'll get to that. We'll have our picks for the Big 12 and also some other top 25 picks, and we were not good at all last weekend. And so we'll have that. We'll unveil that. Levi Caraway's working on that. Baseball playoffs, by the way. Cleveland ended an 8-game postseason losing streak to win 2-1 in the opening of baseball playoffs against Tampa Bay. Philadelphia right now, and the Cardinals in the 6th inning, no score. We'll update that on occasion. And we do have to talk about that godforsaken NFL game last night in Denver, but not yet, because we'll discuss college football. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Paul's back with us today. Garrett Ross is running the mothership, and we do appreciate your time on this Friday. The chat room is already rolling along. We'll get to that. But here's a pretty good note from Kansas, or on Kansas. Pete Thamel, of course, they're hosting game day this weekend. TCU unbeaten 4-0, KU 5-0, both ranked. We'll have Brian Estridge, voice of TCU, today at 5. Kansas beginning a stadium overhaul project that's projected to cost hundreds of millions, a sign of the school's investment in football. It will include renovation of the football complex, a modernization of the 102-year-old stadium, construction to begin in early of 2023. The success has something to do with that. Also trying to get that commitment with Lance Leipold as well. Whether that makes a difference for them, we hope. But that also has to do with it and the fact they needed to do this a long, long time ago.
Well, this was something that they had, I think, initially told Les Miles that they were planning on doing in order to kind of rope him in because, again, he didn't have to come back and coach Kansas. Now, it went very badly all the way around with Les Miles at Kansas, but at least in their initial pitch, and then it kind of obviously got put in the back burner. And then it was something that they really had to accelerate when Lance Leipold came and became successful this quickly because they liked what they were seeing from Lance Leipold, and they made a commitment to facilities, and because they, I don't know if this is the administration fancying themselves to be a a prominent player in conference realignment maybe down the line because of what they think, or if it's just knowing that you have to invest in football if you want to remain relevant when it comes to these big decisions in the ever-changing landscape. They had to do it. They absolutely had to do it. They spent a ton of money on basketball. They're never going to stop spending a ton of money on basketball. Bill Self can go out and get, if he needed $300 million, I'm sure it would take him about 3 days.
Yeah, 3 calls.
Yeah, and maybe just 3 days, because when you ask for that much money, you need to do it in person, and you just go from town to town or place to place doing that. But this is a big thing for Kansas. I'm happy to see it. Good for them. Yeah, good for KU. Century-old stadium. Is that what it said?
102 years.
Yeah, it's almost like it's about time. It's good to see them, making a commitment to football like they would have done, as Paul said, to basketball at the, blink of an eye if they wanted to. But, I think it's great. There's a lot of good news surrounding them right now. If they win tomorrow, that'll be, an incredible start to be bowl eligible right out of the gates at 6-0. So, that's a huge game for them tomorrow, huge opportunity, hosting game day, and just a bunch of good news. So I hope KU fans are enjoying the ride, and depending on where this goes and the way it, maneuvers into basketball season, this could be, a really fun close to 2022 for Kansas fans out there. So, this doesn't happen, all that often, but you get into kind of just a special pocket of time for your program, and it certainly feels like for KU that's happening right now. So good for them.
The chat room of those of you who have joined us, Scotty B, let's go. Justin McGuffey. Thank God it's Friday. Let's go Frogs. K-Do, big weekend in Lawrence, Rock Chalk. Also, Jeremy, let's go Clemson and Coastal Carolina. From Jeffrey Thompson, a month ago, thought this might be a game Alabama might lose. Doesn't appear to be that way now. No. From Adam Martin, let's go Tigers. That's Memphis, beat Houston. And Y-Zone, thank God it's Friday. A few others, Mad Max dugging out for blood this weekend. Paul is back, biscuits and gravy and grapevine for the day, and just heard the voice of the Longhorns on the fan. Of course, they play Texas coming up tomorrow morning against Texas and OU. And we'll discuss and have our predictions on that game today.
Well, I'm glad to be back. Today is costing me a lot less money than yesterday did. I had a plumber in the house and the car in the shop in the same day.
That's always fun. We've everybody on this set has had a little bit of that. Seemed like throughout the week.
I don't want to hear anything about car repair. I spent, probably like 4 months of paychecks in the last 4 weeks. So, yeah.
All right, Phil Venzer. No more outhouses at Kansas Stadium. I have seen that complaint about bathrooms in some stadiums, the old ones sometimes antiquated with that. I think all stadiums have gone through that over the years. Decline, hook 'em. Hello all from Buckshot. Also from Mike Bean, I've heard it is step one to Big Ten. Just what I hear. Don't DM at me. Mike is one of those very, very proud KU fans that continues to hold out hope for that. That's not happening overnight, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I know that KU fans have got that feeling or that hope or that dream.
Even if it's not likely to happen, it's definitely not likely to happen with a 102-year-old football stadium and no commitment to that sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly not. And I've seen that going on, I don't know, like 2 years at this point, maybe even longer than that. I've seen that talk. So, if this was step one, there was quite the buildup for it. And I know I'm not, trying to dog on that thought. There very well could be something to that. I don't know. But, if you were going to make that move at some point, then this would be something that you would inevitably do. I think that there's still certainly some expansion stuff, realignment stuff that's in the works. To what degree, I don't think anybody's really got their finger directly on the pulse, like as of this moment, on what that could be other than those involved. But, it's one of those things where I think that the people who have talked about it probably have had their reasons to talk about it, but it's almost like at this point it's like, once it does happen, you say, see, I told you. It's like, inevitably you were going to be right at some point probably. Like, you could say that in 10 years. You could say that in 20 years. You could say that in 2 weeks and say, like, see, I was right. But there's no timetable, so it's just kind of like, all right, well, if it happens, great. But if not, then, okay, it's just like the last, couple years. So, that would be interesting, but we'll see on that.
Sir, blah, blah, blah. Kansas is going to go 15-0. Ben Mora, let's go Cougars. Beat Memphis, number 1 versus number 2 from Phil. He talked about a high school game. We have a high school game tonight, Midway and Temple, or just around the corner on the other side of Waco, that will start a 7 o'clock pregame on the Eagle 106.7 FM, the Eagle, and Sikkim365.com against Midway and Temple. St. John Bosco and Mater Dei. Yeah, that's number 1 in the country against number 2 in the country. That ought to be a hell of a game to be at for a high school football game. Let's see. Justin, does the Kansas TCU winner finally get respect?
I think Kansas maybe already has it. I think TCU certainly earned a big chunk last week, but the caveat to TCU was, Oklahoma's not that good. Well, they don't beat them all that often. They haven't beaten them that bad maybe ever.
It's amazing that anytime Oklahoma loses or Texas loses, they're having a down year. You can never beat them when they're good. That does get a little bit old, I'm sure, for the other team. Anybody saying that, particularly this year, especially if they're a Longhorn or Sooner, and I'm you guys, so I'm not sitting here dogging my own people, so to speak, but they are homers, basically, especially if they're saying that in this year's Big 12 of, it's down because Texas and OU. Well, are we sure Texas is down? We don't even know that yet. They might be just fine. So are we going to suddenly turn that opinion around if they suddenly jump into the mix and, no, never mind, the Big 12 is good because Texas is good? I think that's just an opinion that particularly fans of those two fan bases use to just try to, negate any good energy or good vibes or even good football talk surrounding the others. I don't buy that, and I think people who say that clearly don't know much about the Big 12. That's like the big red flag right out of the gates for somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about, who has an agenda by saying that.
And look, we don't know about Texas. They could very easily win their next 5 and then lose 2 in a row. And that's not a knock on Texas. That's just how the conference is and how the schedule goes. Yeah. You can win 5 in a row and be feeling good, and then all of a sudden you hit a bad matchup. Yeah. I mean, look, I think I'll give you an example in the Big 12 this week. Iowa State's 0-2 in the league. Kansas State's rolling along, right? Well, now, not to say that Kansas State can't win this game, but this is a bad matchup for Kansas State because Iowa State's pretty darn good against the run. So will they be able to do the same thing? And Iowa State is desperate, backed into a corner, not wanting to go 0-3. So, you know how these things can turn.
I'll tell you how I know that it's not a down year for the Big 12, and it's quite the opposite, is various podcasts that I listen to, one in particular, suddenly it's been – as long as I've heard it off and on, very heavy for a couple conferences, the ones that make the most money. And suddenly they actually, hey, if you need Big 12 talk, we're your go-to place. And I'm like, wait a second. Y'all maybe scrape the surface of the Big 12 every once in a while, but all of a sudden making a pitch for Big 12 talk as though you're the epicenter of it. And I don't know. I feel like we've got as much claim to that as anybody, but, the more the merrier, all for it all. I'm going to be on a West Virginia podcast here at some point, but yeah, I think that speaks to the fact that it's the opposite of a down year in the Big 12. It's a very interesting year, and I think people who see blood in the water or attention in the water see that, hey, there's a bunch of fan bases that are all potentially pretty good and this very tight race, and we want in on this too because this looks like it could be a lot of fun, and it has been a lot of fun so far, and it is set up to be a lot of fun, but that's how I know it's not a down year. But yeah, we can't rule out Texas being in the mix just yet. And look, Oklahoma goes and wins tomorrow. I think that's highly doubtful, but if they were to, you're going to have to give them some props. And I don't think we'll be talking about how down the league is.
Paxton with a hook'em horn sign. Steve, what's up, Paxton? Phil Venzer. Most of the time, the new stadiums, the thing that is the best is that women's restroom access and also the amenities. Let's see here. Iowa State men's basketball lost a player for the season due to a torn Achilles. I know basketball, the ratings and standings and all that's coming out. I'm not yet there. We do have a basketball note. In fact, Garrett, let's put that up right now as we're going through everything else. The game with Baylor and Gonzaga in Sioux Falls is sold out. It was sold out in 6 minutes when the tickets went online. That Baylor-Gonzaga basketball game, the rematch for the national championship game a couple of seasons ago, sold out in 6 minutes. That will be on December the 2nd.
That's not shocking considering what kind of a game that's probably going to be, given all the talent that's there. But also, just the people in the surrounding area in South Dakota, it's not a place that gets a whole lot of big marquee sports events. Yeah. I mean, so, you're kind of out there in both the Dakotas, but good for Sioux Falls. Way to go. Sell that thing out.
All right, from Quanah Hurt, thank you. I could live with Kansas winning the Big 12, but I would prefer Oklahoma State win it. Texas, TCU winning it. From Provo Cougar, go Baylor. Country Roads, BYU 28, Notre Dame 21. Thank you. And then also, this is from Justin. As a person who doesn't have a team to root for in the Big 12, it reminds me of the old Big East days. Lots of parity. Anyone can beat anyone in any given week. I think you're right. I think that eventually there'll be one or two teams that drift to the bottom, and there'll be one or two teams that maybe get to nudge their nose above the rest of the fray. Phil, Texas is okay until you hear their offensive line coach start to rant. Excuse me for that. Rob Riggle will be the guest picker for game day tomorrow, a 93 grad of Kansas.
Well, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. He'll be good. He'll be good at that.
All right, so that's a lot of what we're doing, what we have, you are saying as well. The chat room, thank you very much for being a part of it. Hit the like button if you can. Spread the word if you possibly can. So those are the thoughts. Kansas and their new renovations, a new stadium, whatever else. College football tonight, really kind of Houston, Memphis. Houston desperately needs a win. Memphis, of course, is off to a nice quiet under the radar, but, playing well. 6:30 tonight on ESPN2. Colorado State at Nevada, UNLV, that's Phil's team, at San Jose State, and Nebraska in the Big Ten, a 6 o'clock game. They play in Rutgers. Rutgers is 3-2 this year. So those are the games tonight. We will get tomorrow and all throughout the Big 12 and the top 25. I want to say this about Steve Snook. You have heard me talk about Steve before. We got to know Steve. He started watching our show. He's a huge Cincinnati fan. Very knowledgeable. Sends me text messages that are very in-depth, and a lot of times I even tell him I don't have time to read them all, but I do appreciate the information, especially a lot of the playoff stuff. His father passed away yesterday evening. He sent me a text. I wanted to say, Steve, we're thinking about you. His mom, he said, 85-year-old, toughest woman on earth, but his father passed away. He, along with everybody that watches this and listens to us, whether we agree or disagree with opinions, favorite teams, whatever else, conferences, we are a family, and I wanted to send Steve and his family the best from us at 365 Sports on the passing of his father. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco. They've got the best selection of Texas-sourced whiskeys anywhere. TX, Devil's River, Balcones, they've got them all at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great selection of craft beers, great customer service, great everything. That drive-through window is super speedy, all of that. Plus, they're available on DoorDash. You hear me use the word great, and I don't throw it around lightly because that's what it is there. Everything you need, anytime you need it, they've got it. Or if they don't, they can probably get it for you, tell you when it's going to be there. And if it's something from out of state or something different, ask them about it. Say, hey, I lived in this state and they had this whiskey or this vodka, and can I get it here? They can tell you whether they can or can't because they're always trying to find new things and new brands and new things that people like at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank. Check them out on DoorDash.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Troy Young entered the chat room late.
Does he have a note?
No, he does not, but he said to me and us and you and all of us, you got me. Insert the meme from Dark Knight Rises when Alfred says he failed Bruce.
But he didn't. Bruce was alive. So there you go.
Yeah, but it was a bad. I don't remember those specific parts. I just remember the part of the movies. I couldn't even. That was Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good for you.
So I know.
You know what? I'm going to get you a treat later.
Thank you. Make it a Reese's Pieces so I can change my last name to Reese. You see that story yesterday? Richard Reese and everyone Reese in college football. All right. We admit up front we do not gamble on these picks. Do not use our college football picks to do anything where we try to influence money because we're bad with straight-up games. Last week, Craig was the best at 3-4, and that was the best. And Kansas fans have begged me not to pick them. Just don't pick us. So these are the 7 games I think we have. Here are the picks for this week, and there's a lot of them that are not quite chalk. There's a few. Paul, Craig, and me, left to right. Paul's influenced dramatically by this pick, Kansas and TCU.
I am. I can't switch the pick I made on Monday and the big one too with nothing having happened at Kansas this week. So nothing's happened injury-wise, and I'm just going to ride with them until they lose. They've got game day. They seem to adapt to situations well. I was very impressed with last week where the game was not how they played all the rest of their games. It was 14-11 was the final score. Iowa State mucked it up pretty good, and then they held on. They played Iowa State's game and beat them. So I really do think I'm going to stick with them. I'm ready to be wrong. I was 1-6 last week. I know
wow.
Yeah, I know there's still a place I can go down, but I don't think I'm going to be 1-6 this week. So there's really almost anywhere to go but up.
Well, if you listen to anybody who proclaims to be like experts in this area, you're going to take massive losses from time to time. Like, that's unavoidable. Like, even people who are really good at it have under 500 weeks and have weeks that aren't so good, or weeks that are good where they finish like a couple above 500. Like that's just the nature of it. But yeah, we don't roll the spreads just straight up. And I think the fact that there's normally a lot of Big 12 picks just speaks to like how topsy turvy it is. I mean, if you go back and look at the games last week, I mean, yeah, it's 1-6, but there's a couple of picks you probably made that were the right picks. Like in theory, that if you went back and looked at it again, you'd probably make the same pick. Like I'd still go pick Baylor, guys. Like I don't know about y'all. I mean, yeah, in hindsight, I go, oh well, sure, Oklahoma State. But if you were to transport me back and even give me a little bit of knowledge of it, I'm still picking Baylor to win that game, So that's just part of the deal. I guess I was one above, but yeah, I guess Garrett flipped that back up there. I guess you give our rationale for each. I know this game's in Kansas. I know that game day's there, and Jalen Daniels is a lot of fun and all of that. But I feel like KU's been obviously really good offensively, and I think it was great that they were able to win a game defensively last week, but I do think that should have been their first loss last week. I think Iowa State should have won that game. KU made enough plays and got enough breaks that they didn't, and I'm not feeling as confident about TCU, honestly, going into this now as we're getting towards the end of the week, but you got to make your picks when you make them. So, yeah, I'm going with the Frogs. I just think overall they're a more well-rounded team. I think they can match some of the explosiveness offensively, and I think that they could play, toe-to-toe defensively for sure. So, I just went with TCU there.
A lot of people on the chat room. I just put this up, and now listen to me. Go ahead and come back to us, Garrett, and we'll put that graphic back up. I just said this on the graphic because we put our names out there with our picks, and believe me, we go down crashing and burning like we did last week. If you email me, Smoky HSFB, that's for high school football, Smoky HSFB at gmail.com, your 7 picks for the games we have up. First person to enter that goes 7-0, I will send you a 365 Sports cap. All right?
All right.
I don't care if we get 2 entries or 200. I'll go through them. 7-0, not 5 of you. The first one, based on the time you enter and email me, because that will have the code of the time up there, you get a 365 Sports cap, and you can go to bearskins.com for more information on that. So I picked TCU. I just did, and that's probably for Kansas's favor that I picked TCU because I've missed KU I think 1 or 2 times before that. Now, the Red River shootout. Somebody wanted to correct us last night. Hey, stop using that politically correct term. It's Red River Shootout in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. We've all been there. It's a great atmosphere. It's incredible. We all, across the board. Garrett? Pick Texas.
Yeah, well, I think this just kind of goes down to where Oklahoma is and where Texas is right now. Quinn Ewers is coming back. Dylan Gabriel's not going to play. If Dylan Gabriel was going to play, I could sell myself into this game being weird and wild. I just don't think that with backup quarterbacks that this is going to be a good day for OU.
You sure he's not playing?
Well, yeah, I'm not, but
I don't know. I mean, I would lean towards the fact that he's not, but they very much put out a graphic today that had him in a suit, boarding the transportation to Dallas. So, I understand that could be mind games on Oklahoma's part, like, oh, look, here's Dylan Gabriel. Everybody get their hopes up that he might play, or, Texas sees that and, maybe has an idea that he might play or something. I don't know. Maybe it's not mind games. Maybe it's just he was in the picture frame at the time. But I think that there had to be some intentionality there one way or the other. I still assume he's probably not going to play. Even if he was, I'm still picking Texas. Like, even if he was playing, I would still pick Texas in this game just based on what we've seen most recently. I mean, Oklahoma's given up about 1 billion yards over the last 2 weeks, like 80-something points. I mean, they did their defense. I don't see them getting all of the corrections made in enough time to then go there and put on a better showing against Quinn Ewers and Bijan Robinson and Xavier Worthy and company. I'm rolling with Texas. I don't think that they're like great and unbeatable, but I do think they got a lot more mojo coming into this game and a lot more questions answered than Oklahoma does at this point. So I'll say this: if Texas does not win this game, that is an all-time atrocious loss, in my opinion, based on just the talk going into this week.
Against Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's an all-time bad loss for Texas if they don't beat Oklahoma tomorrow.
It seems like I agree, everything, and there may be a game or two along the way that we're like, oh, my God. But really, from the time I understood college football in the 60s, 70s, and throughout, Oklahoma and Texas, they've always both been pretty good. There's been times when they're both, but it's an incredible game. There are some upsets, but most of them I think are the Texas winning. I agree with you. I think that it's all set up. First of all, Oklahoma looks like a mess on defense. The one thing UT can do is score.
Yep.
Their defense at Texas is playing so much better. Yes, they lost the game in Lubbock to Texas Tech and blew a 14-point lead. So no lead is safe. And last year they blew like a 28-point whatever lead it seemed like it was against Oklahoma.
The last time I think of this game being a big surprise was Mac Brown's last year. And maybe I'm missing a game in between then. But, you felt like,
Charlie Strong.
Okay, yeah,
Charlie Strong got him one
both.
time.
So both of those were basically the same thing. It's like those guys are lame ducks, and they go and beat Oklahoma when it seems like there's nothing going in UT's favor. So yeah, it would very much be like that, just the UT version. But I think that Oklahoma just feels so down bad going into this game that, like, we're talking about the coaches in that. We're not talking about Venables being the hot side. We're just talking about like how bad OU looks, right? And now potentially no starting quarterback. There's a lot going against them. So, yeah, Texas has to win this game tomorrow. If they don't, then, man, I can't wait to see how they did not win this game tomorrow.
Quanah Hurt on the chat room. Don't laugh at me, but I think as impossible as it seems, Oklahoma might barely beat Texas enough. OU players are out. It might give Texas some problems.
It's college football. I mean, it could happen.
It's a rivalry game. I mean, it really is. I just don't see how they can keep up with what I even saw, much less what we say about their defense, which was trashed by TCU. But offensively, I didn't see much even when Gabriel was in the game early on. In 2013 and 15, Paxton brought up when Texas beat Oklahoma. There was also a game when Sam Ehlinger beat Kyler Murray during the season. Then they played in the Big 12 championship game, and Oklahoma ended up having a big game. Calcaterra had a big moment or two or three in that game, and so was Murray, and they won the game that same year.
Yeah, I mean, that's all fair. Those are all, again, Texas examples, though. This is Oklahoma that's coming in where we're going, like, they're not good at all, or they're not very good. And so, yeah, if they end up winning this game, man, that's going to be some tale to tell on Monday.
It has been since 1999 since Oklahoma wasn't good. They had the one team, like, they were 9-4, like in 2013 or 14. But for them, the last time they weren't good, to me, would have been Stoops' first year. They ended up going to a bowl game and winning. I think they did. Before that, it was, of course, John Blake, and Snellenberger. But it has been that long since they were not good. And so this is the first time we've been in a position to see that in quite some time. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Mike, I don't want Texas to win. I want them to cover. Well, that means they won, right?
Yeah.
Because they're 9.5-point favorites. All right, graphic. In the game 3. Texas Tech fans, I know you're going to flare up on us, and that's fine. Texas Tech's a pretty big underdog in this game, even though it's at home. Oklahoma State coming off the 36-25 win against Baylor. We have the Cowboys across the board left to right.
Yeah, I just think that they're better right now. And I know that one thing, that Tech's not going to go away in this game. They'll be hanging around, but Oklahoma State's just better.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State's just better. I'll say what I said yesterday. I know Oklahoma State fans, they want everybody to crown them after last week, or at least there's a portion of them that do. They've been very active online and telling everybody, like, why are you not talking about us? Why are you disrespecting us? I've seen that card played a lot this week. But, like, as somebody who covers Baylor, I give them their respect, but I also know what I saw from Baylor, and I do think that played into it as much as, what Oklahoma State was doing. Not to take away from their win by any means, but I don't think that was just a dominant Cowboys win that was like putting the Big 12 on notice. If you guys want to disagree with that, by all means. I think it was a good win, and they played better, but I don't think that it's like, all right, they're the overwhelming favorite in the conference now. I'm just not there.
Oklahoma State.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, They went into Waco and beat the defending champions, and they dictated that game from almost the jump with a couple of plays early on that maybe changes it in some way. Oklahoma, to me, dominated that game.
Oklahoma State
dominated that game. They have the best win so far, perhaps in the conference, although the win by TCU over Oklahoma, it depends on if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah. I got called on our post-game show in the chat room a fat clown last week by one of the Oklahoma State fans that was watching.
Oh, and God, unnecessary.
It's fine. I'm a Husky guy and I'm a comedian, so technically in one regard, I'm a fat clown. Also, you can't hurt me. But I do know this. He said that because I said everybody in this conference is going to lose. Almost everybody in the country is going to lose. That's how college football works. That's how it works, especially in the Big 12 this year. it looks like everybody's going to have to take a loss because there's no head and shoulders favorite. Oklahoma State's the favorite right now, and that's for sure. But that can change in a hurry based on this league.
There's some weird things, Craig, that happen in Lubbock, Texas. You never know.
But, I mean, it's not even like I'm going with Oklahoma State in this game. I'm just saying that, like, to address the a-holes, like the guy who said that to you, Paul, who I'd love to hear somebody say that. I doubt that person says that in person. I'll put it that way. And I doubt that person has much room to talk. I'll put it that way as well. But I still pick Oklahoma State. I'm just saying I'm not going to pick them to go, represent in Arlington just yet. Like, can I see a couple more games first? Like, do we have to crown you right now? Can we see, like, you play a couple more times before we go all in? Like, that's the whole point of why everybody's just kind of like, let's just see. But again, great win. But I picked them to win this weekend because Texas Tech's been through a grinder. They've played now 5 straight top 25 teams. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's still a quarterback controversy in Lubbock. They're not sold on Donovan Smith. Joey McGuire had to spend like 3 minutes answering a Donovan Smith quarterback question in his press conference this week because there's rumblings, not necessarily from him or his coaches, but from the fan base or the media, that he's not the guy. He makes too many mistakes. He's not the guy. And that's the frustrating part about Donovan Smith is he can make some great plays. He's very hard to defend at times, but he can also make some really dumb mistakes. And like he can make plays to win you games, make plays to lose you games. And so basically going against Spencer Sanders, like this could be one of the greatest quarterback showings we see, or it could be just like a folly of errors on both sides. I don't really know. But Spencer Sanders is playing really well right now. Oklahoma State seems to have a lot of confidence, and I just think Texas Tech's got to be about tapped out or low on gas at this point. So give me the Cowboys.
All right, I took Oklahoma State. Let's go back down to the graphic. We do have Grayson Grundhafer at 345, but we're going to take it up until this time. Utah and UCLA across the board. UCLA, they got a little help through the transfer portal. Their defense is much, much better, like big time better than last year. Garrett, please leave that up so we can look at the picks, even though it's the same across the board. I take Utah. I didn't even look at the odds of this game, and I take Utah to win it.
Yeah, I just think Utah's got more experience. Although if UCLA does pull this one off, that makes them much more serious. I mean, they just beat Washington. Pac-12 and the ACC, Big 12 all look kind of the same to me, where there's a bunch of teams that can win in any given week, and there's not too many people that are head and shoulders above. But I like Utah and their experience and Cam Rising to win this one.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Tavion Thomas will break out of his shell a little bit more as far as getting into the end zone. I mean, last year it seemed like he was scoring 2 touchdowns a week, and this year it doesn't seem quite as effective. I think Brant Keithy being out, obviously, for Utah is a huge loss for them and made me kind of hesitate for just a moment. But I watched UCLA last week, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson's playing well and all that, but I think Utah's had the upper hand as of late. I think UCLA is good, but I think Utah's kind of flying under the radar somehow a little bit, even though they're number 11, and maybe that's just because we don't talk a ton about them, so it feels that way, but they are number 11 after all. I mean, they're a good team, and I think just because they lost to Florida in week 1, people have kind of maybe brushed them to the side a little bit in the grand scheme of things. So I expect a big win for the Utes. But this should be a great game for the Pac, who's got a lot of suddenly some showcase games that maybe you weren't expecting prior to the year.
Yeah, that'd be good for them, no question. Then there's Brigham Young and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a favorite, according to Vegas, in this game. And, Paul, I even sent you a text earlier today. I go, why? I thought Jaron Hall was the best player on the field. Maybe there's others. I know Brigham Young has still not been able to get the full throttle of their wide receivers really going yet because of injuries, Nakua and Romney. But, you look at Notre Dame. There was a point they lost 3 games in a row. The bowl game, their first 2 games, lost to Marshall. Brigham Young did blow a tire after beating Baylor against Oregon, but I take Brigham Young. Craig, you've taken Notre Dame here.
Yeah, I don't think the bowl game loss really has anything to do with anything, honestly. I know what you're coming from, but I think that, like, if that's what you're – like, I don't count that. I understand the struggle to open the year, Marcus Freeman, all the hype and everything like that, but I think the strength of schedule is something that actually plays pretty well into why I like Notre Dame in this game. I think they've been tested massively. I think that, obviously BYU's had some big tests as well, but – I don't know. I think Nakua still is banged up. So, I liked what I saw from BYU, but the best showing I've seen from them all year was when they were jacked to the gills on a Saturday night for a team that they had an axe to grind against. And they followed that up with a couple struggles, and they got the win against Utah State, but it was a little bit more of a grind than I expected for them. So I still like BYU a great deal, but yeah, I'm going with the Irish at the Raiders' place.
I just haven't seen it from Notre Dame to make me think anything. I know they beat North Carolina, but I'm not all that impressed with North Carolina.
North Carolina can score, dude. They got a good quarterback, man.
Yeah,
they just can't play defense.
But I just – and that's why I'm not impressed with them. I just go with a better quarterback here in Jaron
Let's
Hall.
go to a couple more. Paul, you mentioned Iowa State because of what they do well against is stopping the run. Of course, Kansas State with Martinez and Deuce Vaughn. Martinez has been very efficient when he's throwing the football, but they have run people over like Oklahoma. Last week they did it again to Texas Tech. And you take the Cyclones. You've given us that reason why. Craig and I both take K-State. All right? Down to the bottom. NC State, Paul's alma mater, Florida State. Normally, this is not something that you would pick against your Seminoles, and they have been pretty good this year.
Yeah.
But you don't quite like them today or this weekend.
I think the top four in this part of the ACC, Clemson, NC State, Wake, and Florida State are really close to each other. I think the biggest difference in this game is going to be, one, that it's at NC State, and two, that Florida State does not really have a strong kicker in Ryan Fitzgerald. He's been all over the map. It's what they've been talking about all week. It puts them in a position in games like this against teams that are good on defense like NC State to where early in the game especially, not even late in the game, in close games, early in the game when you're kind of trading points back and forth, you need some field goals, and Florida State hasn't been able to do that. I think NC State can also stop them on fourth downs in that kind of tweener territory. So as good as Jordan Travis has been and will continue to be, I just think it's going to be a tough one for the Noles.
Okay, I take NC State at home, and I'm just kind of tossing up a quarter or any kind of a coin. James Park, Scott Van Kale, Asher Rowe, Sam Smith, and also others have put their emails into me for the picks this week. If you go 7-0, first person based on the time you entered, we'll get a 365 Sports cap if you go 7-0 with the list of what Paul, Craig, and I have predicted.
Yeah, I'm not a huge NC State fan at the moment. I do think they're a little bit faulty, but I'm picking them against FSU, and I actually thought that I'd pick FSU coming off of a loss, but I just think they got a few question marks right now that I'm not willing to jump all in. I just feel like, okay, Devin Leary's bound to break out at some point. This seems like a good opportunity to win a game that's, of big importance. So, yeah, I'm rolling with NC State, but I definitely think that they are I don't know if they're top 15 good just yet. I think that they showed some good things against Clemson, but I don't know if they're top 15 good. But I'm taking them over the Noles.
All right, when we come back, Grayson Grundhafer will join us. Grayson, of course, Chicken365.com, co-host of the Bearcast, also writes a lot when it comes to recruiting and analyzes the games in college football. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on for not only a great deal, but great customer service and great service after, you get done buying the car and after you get off the lot. They are your customer for life for Richard Carr. They're going to take care of you and take care of your vehicle. And if you are in the market for a new vehicle, well, the wait is over. They've got trucks. They've got SUVs on the lot right now. 2022 Sierras, Acadias, and Terrains from the line of GMCs have all arrived and are waiting for you to test drive today. They've also got Cadillac XT4, XT5 SUVs available for a test drive. So inventory going fast. Get there now for the best selection. And when it comes to the Sierras, they offer best-in-class towing, strong steel bed, multi-pro tailgate, advanced collision avoidance, and a luxurious interior that includes massive touchscreens, 14 camera views, and premium comfort. So trucks are waiting on you right now over at Richard Carr. Get on over there and get a test drive in. And they've got dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. If you're not looking to buy new, it's just that getting new cars and trucks on the lot has been a bit of an issue for dealerships all over the country over the last year or two. Well, that's starting to ease up a little bit. So now you got a great time to go over there and check out not only the new models, but also the quality pre-owns as well. All of those have gone under a 172-point inspection, and they have multiple lending options to say yes when others say no when it comes to your car loan. So for 23 years in Central Texas, go over to the people that you can count on for your automotive needs. Richard Carr, run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of Sikkim365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Next segment, Jake Hatch on Brigham Young and that game with Notre Dame in Vegas. He's driving, in fact, to Vegas as we speak. He'll join us momentarily and also maybe drop in on that Utah-UCLA game with him. We're now joined by Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com football analyst, recruiting analyst, and also co-host of the Bearcast. Grayson, what What have you learned about Baylor? They get the off week. What have you learned about them? And is everything you've learned about them that may not be good correctable?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Because if you look at this team and kind of what we found out, I think in the early going is, they're far from perfect. That they're not a finished product this early in the season. They're relying on young playmakers, which at times has hurt them. And we've seen that, multiple times throughout the season. I think even some of their older guys, maybe aren't performing up to the level that I think everyone expected them to be playing at. And so I think it's one of those situations where, you come into that Oklahoma State game, for instance, and Baylor really hadn't shown a ton passing the ball. Like you saw high efficiency against Iowa State, but in the Oklahoma State game, you saw volume because they were playing catch up, and you saw, what Blake Shapen can do, what Monterey Baldwin can do. And you just go, okay, so when's this going to become consistent? When are these big plays going to become consistent? And when's the run game going to continue to become more consistent than it has early in the season? So, I think we've learned, certain things about them, but I also would say, I think, both of their games that they've lost, I feel like have been very winnable. They've been in those games. They probably, you could probably flip a coin and you could find out who, ended up winning the game. I know the score of the Oklahoma State game was by 11 on the road. So, Baylor really needed to play better. But I would say if you went back and watched the game, you'd go, okay, there were some little things that if this one or two plays shifted, Baylor wins that game. And so very easily correctable going into the bye week. But I would say, there's still a lot of work to do if you want to be the team that is going to repeat for a Big 12 championship. And that was their expectation coming into the season.
Grayson, I know Richard Reese has been good. Whoa.
What in the world is it?
Well,
it's an Amber Alert.
It's an Amber Alert on my phone. Just turn him down real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, that was different. Grayson, going back, I know that Richard Reese has been really good. And they have not used Squirrel Williams that much. But is this team missing its thumper in Tay McWilliams more than you thought?
Yeah, I kind of thought they would miss him. I would also just say that, I think, let's start with a few other parts. I don't think the offensive line has been as dominant as it was last year, in large part because Khalil Keith isn't there. But I would also say, some guys maybe aren't playing to the level that they played at a year ago. So let's start with that. But yes, on the other hand, not having Tay McWilliams was a big deal. And if you go back and watch the spring game this year, you didn't see huge runs from him. You weren't seeing him, break off 70-yard touchdowns. But what you were seeing were him getting hit 2 yards downfield, and then it ends up being a 4 or 5 yard gain. And that is something they're absolutely missing. It was very reminiscent of what Abram Smith did in the spring game prior to the 2021 season. So, yes, I think they're missing him. He's about 6'1", 213 pounds. So he's not as, stout as Abram. He's not as strong as Abram was in the program for a lot longer. But he does give them a little bit more power at the running back position, a little bit more veteran leadership from a bigger running back. And just a guy who I think, coming into the year was thought to be the workload running back, the guy that they were going to give, all kinds of workload to. Then he goes down, and then you have to reevaluate, and you're giving Squirrel some carries, you're giving Richard Reese the bulk of the carries, you're giving Quaylen carries. But I don't think that's who they wanted to be initially to start the year. I think they were going to rely heavily on Tay. So, yeah, they've definitely missed him a lot.
How do you feel about the secondary at this point, Grayson? That was one of the questions coming into this year. I think wide receiver was one that is still a question at this point. Do you feel like the secondary remains a question as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it definitely does. And, I think the safeties have been, for the most part, okay. When you're thinking about Devin Neal, Devin Lemire, Al Walcott, their biggest issues have been, especially Al with the cast on. I think it's been hard for him to play man-to-man coverage. So they've tried to not ask him to do that much. But then you're putting Devin Neal in one-on-one situations, and that's not really what he's best at. So he has struggled there a little bit in the slot. But the biggest issue has been cornerback. And Lorando Johnson has definitely shown flashes at one of the cornerback positions. He's very good against the run. He's very good at getting through screens. So you've seen flashes from him. He's been fairly consistent. I would say he's been good this year, not great. I think there's another level that he can reach. As far as the other side, the other cornerback position, they're having all kinds of problems. And, Mark Milton, A.J. McCarty, both of those guys have taken lumps this year. We saw it again against Oklahoma State. A lot of teams are taking one-on-one shots against those guys down the sideline where there is no safety help and winning those battles more times than not. So I think going into this bye week, it needs to be an open competition. I think for those cornerback positions, if you got to play young guys like we saw Tevin Williams get in there and play, you got to play him, go for it. Give him an opportunity to go out there and play. Reggie Bush, even the true freshman, he's another guy to keep an eye on. I think it needs to be completely open. Allow these guys to go out there and recompete for this other cornerback spot opposite Lorando Johnson and see how things go. Now, if you go through this bye week and you go, oh, man, we still haven't figured this out, then I think you need to seriously consider moving Al Walcott back to cornerback, assuming he doesn't have to wear that cast anymore, because we saw what he did last year. He was their best cornerback last season in my eyes, and they moved him to star because, they felt like he could be put in an opportunity to be extremely efficient, kind of like Jalen Petrie was last year, and really wreak havoc from that position. But they've been giving up so much at cornerback that you almost go, okay, maybe he needs to make that move back to corner. And then you have your three safeties who have been, they're older and they've been playing okay, like Christian Morgan, Devin Neal, and Devin Lemire. I think you feel like you might be able to make up for him at the star while also getting a huge upgrade at cornerback. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think they really need to figure it out. And if that means moving a guy like Al out there, then I think you need to do it.
I never even thought about the fact what you brought up with Al Walcott. That's a great point, because I thought he was a guy that had a chance to be an all-conference corner with how he played at the end of last year, and forgot that I didn't forget about him, but just forgot that might have opened up. Because sometimes you might strengthen one position but not enough, and then you weaken another one completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, he was playing so good at the end of the year, had that pick six against Ole Miss. But as many people have noted, and it's absolutely true, Al's future most likely in the NFL is at safety. And so you put him at star and you allow him to really grow as a safety and grow into what he could be in the NFL. But the thing of it is if Baylor needs him to play cornerback, they need him to play cornerback, and they need to shore up that position, especially, because they have a veteran, they have veteran guys at safety with Neal and Christian Morgan that you feel like you can probably make up for it a little bit. But then again, we haven't seen the best Al Walcott yet because he's had the cast on. So who knows? Maybe that's impacting things as well. But I think as the year progresses, Al is going to be a huge difference maker once he's 100% again.
Well, I think he'd have 2 picks now for sure, if not for the cast. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that it's impacting him. Grayson, how do you feel about the play of the front seven overall, though? It's not been 9 sacks in the Sugar Bowl great yet.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to note, and I know I posted, I was doing kind of a reaction piece on the website, and I talked about biggest area of improvement. And, Travis mentioned the secondary. That's absolutely one. But the second one I mentioned was getting after the quarterback. And currently Baylor is 68th in the country in sacks. And that includes games where you've gotten to play against weaker competition in Texas State and Albany. And, you look at their other games, they had 2 sacks against BYU, and they had 0 sacks against Oklahoma State. So in your 2 losses, you're averaging 1 sack per game in those. And so it's been a problem. Now, if you look back to last year, I find this to be extremely interesting. They were kind of in the exact same spot. They weren't getting after the quarterback. They weren't wrecking havoc. It was right after the loss to Oklahoma State is when things turned. And it was game 6, and Baylor's about to be in game 6. And last year it was game 6 against West Virginia, and Baylor had 6 sacks. Well, you know who Baylor's playing in game 6 again this year? West Virginia once again. So I'm wondering if the Mountaineers can be a cure for this. But in all seriousness, who would have thought? I mean, Bryson Jackson, great player. We knew he was going to get after the quarterback. But I find this to be pretty crazy that Bryson Jackson and Matt Jones, they're the leaders in sacks right now. If you combined Gabe Hall, Apuika, Garmin Randolph, TJ Franklin, Jackson Player, Dylan Doyle, and Al Walcott all together, they would have less sacks than just those two guys.
That's yeah.
So it's been a problem. It's been absolutely a problem. Their front four, so call it, they really need to play better, and they need to create more havoc. And if they're not doing that, then they need to revert to what they did last year and bring more pressure with Matt Jones and Al Walcott and Dylan Doyle, kind of like they did a year ago with Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard.
Nobody, it seemed like, the Petrie-Bernard thing, everyone knew they were all-American players, but their speed and beeline from A to B or wherever they were going was just phenomenal. And obviously it's hard to replace those guys, even if you try. Thanks for your time, Grayson. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Enjoy it. Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting coordinator, also or recruiting analyst, along with college football analyst. Tuesdays, they have the Bearcast. Craig and Grayson spend time here in the studio. We'll launch that out during the afternoon. Coming up next, Jay Katz is on his way to Vegas. He's lucky. He's on his way to Vegas for that game between Brigham Young and Notre Dame. We'll discuss that game with him, and also even the Utah game with UCLA. By the way, I put up the note about sending me your picks. I said email. I'm not going to, listen, I'm trying to have fun with this weekend. I'll take 150 of these if we get them. First person to go 7-0 based on the time you sent your email gets a 365 Sports cap. I'm not going to go track down picks on Twitter, the text line, the chat room. It's, again, I want to have fun, but you have to email me. And I'll put up that information again on the chat room. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store. And let's say you don't have plans for what you're going to cook this weekend on the grill. And the possibility that you do is you want to go by Waco Custom Marketplace for what they also deliver, which is a phenomenal butcher shop. You say, okay, a butcher shop's a butcher shop. Okay, maybe it is. But their meat, their beef, what they do with the cut of steaks that they have, and their specials are phenomenal. That's where I get. And in fact, this weekend, I will have a bone-in ribeye. I already took it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, letting it thaw out naturally, and I can't wait to gobble that up tomorrow at some point in the evening. And Baylor's off, and so I have most of the day to do that. Select choice in prime beef fillets from $10.99 a pound to $26.99 a pound. Pork tenderloin medallions at $4.75 a pound. Bacon ends and pieces, $2.75 a pound. Chicken leg quarters, $1.25 a pound. And also oxtails at $7.99 a pound. Breakfast sausage patties, if you want to get up and have brunch or a breakfast and enjoy, at $2.75 a pound. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
They might go for it, and they do. 4th down and 5. Chapin and Baylor. His throw for Baldwin has a first down across the 40 and then some. Oh, the speed! 70 yards! Sparks off his shoes for Monterey Baldwin.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We have had Jake Hatch on before, and a lot of times just the games that he covers, Brigham Young pregame, postgame, and also for the coverage he has in the state of Utah with many things. Also on the show, 6 until 10 in the mornings with DJ and PK. Jake Hatch joins us at Jacob C. Hatch on Twitter as he's on his way. Have you gotten to Vegas yet? How far away are you?
I'm about halfway, boys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of it, Jake. Love your knowledge on BYU, and we might dive into that Utah-UCLA game. So obviously, Brigham Young had that very nice win against Baylor, then blew a tire against Oregon. Who are they, Baylor game or the Oregon game?
I would venture to say they're somewhere in between, because I thought that Baylor game, they maybe played their most mistake-free football of the season, but then the very following week, as you mentioned, blowing a tire is a very good analogy for what happened up there in Eugene. So I don't think this team is as bad as they played against Oregon, nor do I think they're quite as good as what they did against Baylor. So, yeah, I'd say if you could kind of split the gap there, that's probably what they are.
All right, Jake, why are they 9.5-point dogs in this game? What does Vegas know that I clearly am missing?
Well, here's the thing. The different sports books, I've seen the 9.5-point dog, but there's other sports books that have them as low as a 3.5-point dog. So I look at this, and I'm wondering the exact same thing, guys. And that's the big question right now, is that we're looking at a lot of this going on with Notre Dame. I just think that they're looking at the talent disparity in most people's mind when it comes to this matchup.
How is BYU health-wise going into this game?
Sorry, you broke up there. Can you say that one more time?
How is BYU health-wise going into this game?
they're actually going to be about as healthy as they have been all season long. The biggest question mark has been to the wide receiver position for BYU. Both Puka Nacua and Gunnar Romney, they have had neither of them together on the field this season. And everything I'm hearing right now is against Notre Dame, both of them will be available. So BYU will finally have their top two wide receivers on the field. And they've already had very good contributions from their backups this season from the wide receiving core. So you would think that offensively they should be about as stacked as they could be.
I wonder how many teams by the end of this weekend and next, when they also have Arkansas in mid-October in a week, how many teams would have played teams ranked or the thought of who they are within the first 7 games of the year like Brigham Young? Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, and Arkansas. That's a nice battery ram of opponents.
It is, and that's the thing about this. BYU, this schedule is going to really tell us. They already went through the first 2 back-to-back sets of both Oregon and Baylor. They split those games. I think if they split these games upcoming, that's probably going to set the tone for a season that could end up 10-2 on the year and would be a pretty good year, all things considered. So there's a lot going on with this team right now, but they really are going to be a team by the midway point of the season. They'll have proven themselves whether they're a pretender or a contender, and we're going to know that here in the next couple of weeks.
Jake, what do you know about Notre Dame that would make you scared for BYU?
Their running game. That's the biggest thing. BYU's biggest weakness has been defending the run on defense. And unless they can force Notre Dame to throw the football, this is going to be a game that BYU could be in trouble with the fact that Notre Dame has 3 very capable running backs, and they'll be more than content to jam it down BYU's throat like Oregon did.
Baylor tried, and they that was a grudge match, kind of a slugfest. And 3 yards and a cloud of whatever else for both teams in that game. The difference, of course, was Hall was just a little bit better, and obviously Roberts had a big game. Is Roberts still the main guy with the other guys getting healthy? I know Hill I think Hill, who's had a pretty good run.
Yeah, Keanu Hill's been really good. He's actually kind of the unsung hero of that wide receiving core. Chase Roberts actually picked up an injury of his own. I am not expecting him to play tomorrow in that game against Notre Dame. So the hope is that the 2 guys that they thought were going to be their top 2 dogs, both Puka Nacua and Gunnar Romney, who had injury concerns of their own early this season, they're expected to play in this game. So they're probably going to retake the top 2 spots in the rotation there. But yeah, Chase Roberts, he was the breakout star of that Baylor game. That's kind of been the revelation of the season. It's just unfortunate that he picked up an injury of his own and won't be available against the Fighting Irish.
Jake, we saw in that game with Baylor, both kickers missed kicks badly in that game. And either team, of course, could have won in regulation, first or second overtime, and Brigham Young eventually did. Have they ironed all of that out?
They have not. Jake Oldroyd is 1 for 6 in his last 6 attempts for BYU over the past 4 games, going back to that Baylor matchup. And there's a lot of consternation and angst about that because BYU, they've said they've been having competitions in practice over the succeeding weeks, but Jake Oldroyd keeps getting trotted out there. I'm fully expecting that he'll be back out there against Notre Dame, and if he misses another kick, I'm not sure what BYU fans are going to do because they're already very upset with the state of the kicking game.
Yeah, Utah State ran for 204 yards against Brigham Young. 204 yards, almost doubled up the Cougars in that game. All right, so Utah, UCLA. Just a little thought. You're right there in the middle of all that. Utah, of course, coming off the Pac-12 championship and a lot of high expectations. UCLA is better. Are they better and more physical to be able to play with how Utah likes to play the game?
I think that UCLA is a much better team than they have been, but if there's one team that Utah has had the number of in the Pac-12, it's in the UCLA Bruins. It's been 20-point plus blowouts the last, I think, 4 out of the 5 games played over 5 years. I don't know what they're doing against UCLA. I think the Bruins are much improved this year, as evidenced by the fact that they're 5-0 and playing some pretty good football. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is playing the best football of his career. I just don't know that UCLA has necessarily the horses to match Utah in the trenches right now. It may be a year or 2 away that they may ultimately be able to match with, but at that point, UCLA is going to be a Big Ten team. So it's just, I don't think that they're going to be able to win this one, but I think it'll be a little bit tighter than it has been over the past few years.
So tomorrow inside that stadium, what will be the percentage of Brigham Young fans and Notre Dame fans?
I know that Notre Dame, when they originally announced it's one of the Shamrock Series games, so it's a pseudo home game for Notre Dame. They control that, what I understood, between 70 and 75% of the tickets for Notre Dame fans. I know that BYU fans have been buying up a lot of tickets on the secondary market, but I'm still fully expecting at least 2/3 of that stadium to be Notre Dame faithful.
Jake, thank you very much. Safe drive. Be careful. Enjoy Vegas. And remember, there's a football game there as well. Thanks for your time. Jake Hatch. Brigham Young pregame and postgame host, does a great job.
Oh, you popped him there. You popped him there at the end.
I made him nervous.
Yeah. The Jake, I'm getting this. The sun's glowing on me greatly right now. But no, I'll get it, Garrett. I was just seeing myself in the screen how that looked. But I need a little bit of a tan. It's all good. But yeah, the kicking not being shored up a little bit more is definitely a concern. This is a crazy game just from the standpoint of BYU's very efficient offensively and Notre Dame's very strong defensively. So that's I think the key matchup here, or maybe the key matchup is the fact that it's the other sides of the ball that are a little bit more uncertain. It would be in Notre Dame's offense versus BYU's defense. This ought to be a good one, man. I think it's interesting that it's in Vegas, given the two schools and their affiliations with being, more religious-based schools. To have it in Vegas, I think, is just a sign of the times, I suppose, that, we're just, hey, why not? Let's just throw it all out there. So I think that's great and ought to be a terrific crowd. And you can convince me on both. I don't mean to be somebody who's like, I could go both, but like really in this game, I picked Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins this game, but I definitely see the avenue for BYU to win this game, especially if they played the way they did against Baylor, I guess last month now at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be putting money on this one.
You picked BYU because?
Jaron Hall.
The
quarterback's better. That's where I'm leaning.
Sure.
It's a big moment for their religion. If they beat two other religious schools, they get to be right for a year. But until it comes back around. I kid. But I think that this game is so bizarre. I'm very glad that I'm not covering it, and I'm really worried about going to cover a Super Bowl in Vegas. Although I will be entertained to get there and then see people running in, really going, "Holy crap! Is it 2:30 p.m. already?" From that, because I think that's going to happen a little bit for people working this game and working stuff in Vegas.
I get what you're saying there. By the way, I want to say hi to Quanah Hurt. We mentioned Quanah earlier. He's named, I think it's he or she, named after the city of Quanah, Texas. Quanah, Texas, named after Chief Quanah Parker, a Comanche chief. And if someone was bringing that up, a very unique name. So, Quanah, thanks for being a part of the 365 family. Garrett, the Bryce Young tweet from Aaron Wilson. Here is a tweet. This is just a minute ago on 610 in Houston. Tyler Milner, who produces for this show, Alabama quarterback Bryce Young will be out for Saturday's home game against A&M with a shoulder injury reported by Aaron Wilson, _NFL first. Backup Jalen Milroe, who's, of course, a young man from Texas, will start in his place.
And this should move the line from 22.5 to 20.5.
Yeah, man. I don't know that this makes a huge bit of difference. Yeah, I think that Alabama's still the pretty heavy favorite. Excited to see Jalen Milroe some more. I know we've seen him a bit already, but he's a Texas guy, so I got some love for him. And, I still expect Bama to do their thing and ultimately win comfortably. But that is of note. Bryce Young's not the biggest dude in the world. That's have y'all seen him on the Heisman commercial?
Yep.
Is he not like a little kid on the? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but he just sounds like a little kid compared to what RG3 and Kyler and Baker and all the other Heisman winners that are on those commercials. I forget who all is exactly in that one, but it's the normal
Sanders
grab bag.
Get grizzled.
Yeah, all those Heisman House guys, but yeah, it's just funny seeing him because I think I'm getting older too, so just younger people look younger to me. Yeah. But yeah, seeing him talking to some of those legends, it's just like, wow, he's a kid still. I didn't, it just feels weird, but yeah, he's a great player, and we'll see. I think that they probably feel pretty good about their chances, and just being precautionary as much as probably anything else, because it sounded like there was a chance that he could play at one point, but that's why you have depth. That's why you have quality depth, and Jalen Milroe, I think, can get the job done still.
Yeah. All right. By the way, I was super, super geeked up to see Charlie Ward in those commercials this year.
Yeah.
It's been bothering me for a couple years that my alma mater has 3, and we didn't get one guy in the Heisman house.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's somehow Oklahoma, they've had, obviously more than a handful of Heisman at this point. But, Baker is more of a mainstay in those quite a bit. Kyler from time to time. So, yeah, it's fun to see those and good to see Charlie Ward.
All right, thank you again. I have that same – a lot of you now have been sending emails on those 7 games that we have, the college football games mixed in the top 25 in Big 12, and some of them every Big 12 game but the one, which is it's kind of strange. The Texas-Oklahoma game, neither team is ranked. Might be if the winner wins decisively, who knows. But taking your emails, thank you for that on the 7 picks. And some of you fans from teams all throughout the Big 12, we appreciate that. It's 4:18. We're going to have Taylor McCarg in just a minute. He covers college football. He's covering Cincinnati this weekend with the game that he has. And so we'll have that with him in just a moment. There was, let's see here. I want to go over this. This is not a bad thing to discuss. All right. So we've discussed this week in the Big 12. Basically what I was mentioning, Texas, Oklahoma, both teams unranked. Still, obviously, 2 huge fan bases, 2 great traditions. Texas has struggled for about a decade. Oklahoma this year, who knows what they're going to end up being. But somebody responded, MD McKenzie last night. There's the podcast, which we do the live, and then we put it back up. And then at times, and it's just kind of dependent on my evening, I'll go back in and see if there are comments, and 98% of them are great, talking about the segment, the show, some ideas and opinions, and there's always a couple of knuckleheads as well. That's okay. MD McKenzie came on and was talking about, you can talk about Kansas and TCU all you want. You can discuss what you want about whoever, but the most popular game and the best game is going to be Texas and Oklahoma. And that might be true. But here's
best game.
Even if it's perceived a down year for Oklahoma and Texas, it's still bigger and more desirable to the majority of college football fans across the nation. I understand that can be tough to accept when it just doesn't seem fair. It's not hard to accept. It is the more popular game. It is the bigger brand game. It's going to be on ABC. It will have big numbers, at least until one team, maybe Texas, opens up a 30-point can. If that's the case, Notre Dame would win every national championship based on who's the most popular or the highest ratings. If that's the case in the NFL, who would have 25 consecutive Super Bowls?
I'm a Cowboys fan, and if that's the metric we're using, there's a lot of Lombardi trophies in the front hallway that are missing because they're the best ratings no matter what happens. And don't forget that ratings are not always about love watching. They're also, especially for the Cowboys, about hate watching. People will watch the Cowboys and be like, look at them losing to the Broncos.
Yeah. People love to watch.
Yeah, they love it.
But
congratulations on your cable ratings national championship.
Yeah.
That's so much better than the actual national championship. And enjoy that, MD McKenzie or whatever. There was part of that that really struck a chord with me as the obnoxiousness that I despise from certain college football fans. Like kind of how they can never lose. Like, yeah, we're 0-10, but we still got 100,000 people in the stands. You 9-4 with only 50,000. There's always this, we have more fans or we've been around longer or whatever. It's always fall back on history when things aren't going your way. It's almost like you can never lose that way. It's almost like it's kind of rigged that way. So really going out on a pedestal there, or a limb there, I should say. But you can talk about all you want, but this is still the best game, blah, 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 and all that. That's just so obnoxious. That's just so obnoxious. And I think that's totally false in this case. I don't think it'll be the best game. We will talk about who we want to talk about. Thank you for allowing us to talk about what we want to talk about, MD McKenzie. But, man, you are the type of obnoxious that I don't enjoy from college football fans sometimes.
Carl Page, you can count me as a knucklehead. Yeah, we've gone back and forth a couple of times. Thanks for being a part of the show. And the best worst game, that's a good way to put it, is Texas, Oklahoma. The point is that, yes, I would think it may have 2 or 3 times the amount of people watching, but does that scratch your itch because it's not the best game. It's not the most important game, although it could launch one of the other two teams, whoever wins tomorrow, maybe back into a nice little groove. But that's like saying that Ohio State, Michigan are both 500 and they play each other. The Army-Navy.
The Big Ten.
Yeah.
Those aren't the best games,
Yeah.
but they have the biggest fan bases. So, yeah, they get the most money. That's great. But does that mean I want to watch them because they have the most money and the most viewers? No, I don't. I still want to watch the game that has less money and less viewers because it's the better freaking game. Like, I don't care that Iowa State, Oklahoma State have less alumni than Michigan and Michigan State. Iowa State and whoever I just said could still be a better game. So, like, that's where that obnoxiousness comes in.
And a lot of this, don't you think, Craig, and I'm not trying to, isn't it because we've gotten so caught up in all these TV numbers because of the
I've been trying to say this, like, yeah, that's why, like, yeah, I'll mention the ratings and all that, but when we start getting into, like, the comparing the ratings of, like, oh, Iowa, Illinois had more than Notre Dame versus UConn, it's like, I don't care, man. I'm just watching college football. Like, if I was a TV network executive, then maybe I would give a dang about the ratings on a weekly basis, but for the most part, I don't. If you got a healthy number, congrats to you, but, like, I don't have lines drawn in the sand. Like, I live in Big 12 country, and I root for a Big 12 team that's going to be an SEC team. And guess what? They'll go to the SEC, and nothing changes for me. I don't start chanting SEC. Like, it's not tribalistic like that for me. I just like good college football, so I don't care about your TV rating or your allegiance or any of that. Just
or how
give me
big your endowment
or your
might be.
endowment or whatever lame thing you want to point to because you can't point to actually what the game's about, which is winning on the field. Like, I always hear these things not when the team's winning. You don't hear Alabama fan bragging about their TV rating rather than winning because they're bragging about their winning. And they have that other stuff they can tack on as they want to, but they start with the winning. And it's the others that aren't winning. They go, well, yeah, we just got this scholarship fund that's bigger than any. And it's like, okay, if you need some bragging rights that badly, by all means. But I think it just comes across as pretty lame to anybody that sees through what you're trying to do.
The other thing I would say about tribalism is just be aware that you may have bought into a brand. You know, just because a brand is big doesn't mean that it's better. Look, there are lots of Burger Kings out there, and Burger King is fine, but there are a million burger places that are much smaller and local.
Family-owned and operated.
Their burger
Burger King makes more money, Paul.
Yeah.
Burger King has more visitors, Paul. It's automatically better than everything.
Yeah, but their burger's better. I mean, it just tastes better.
No.
It's better. It's got better ingredients and all that stuff. So that's just how it is.
I wanted to bring that up because I knew we would get into a pretty good discussion, and a lot of you in the chat room are also having fun with it.
Yeah,
so wins and losses matter. If you don't do that, go to the ratings. If you don't do that, talk about your endowment. It's kind of where we are. Go ahead.
I mean, that guy is the Mickey D's of college football fans. Let me just say that. And I think that sometimes, too, it's a self-esteem thing. And I try to be mindful of that to some extent. But, like, I just think that you want to take shots and fine, we can fire them right back. But I do think there's this kind of need to feel superior. You're like, oh, I'm a this and that fan, and you're just a measly this type of fan. Like, there's this social class of fandom that I see a lot in college football, and it comes down to we have more fans, and we have a bigger TV deal and all of that. And you just got to realize sometimes that this is somebody just trying to prop themselves up a little bit. So take that into account.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great comments on the chat room for that, and we appreciate you all of the time. Carl Page, I love you, man. Love the back and forth we have on occasion. When we come back, Taylor McCarg, he's got Cincinnati on the docket this weekend. We'll discuss his game he's at and also look at the Big 12 this weekend and the top 25. And this is Sikkim, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. I discuss them a lot because of testosterone. I discuss what he does because there's so much. You watch a game. You watch sports, and there's one ED commercial after another. There's one about, things aren't the same. And that is part of Father Time. 1 out of 3 or 4 men have issues when it comes to sex drive and also ED. But one of the other things that he does when he takes your blood work or gets the results when you get your blood work is check for your PSA level, cholesterol, liver, kidney, all of that. It's the full meal deal. Dr. Kent Petty, PettyClinicLowT.com, can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be. And maybe you used to be. As you get older, 1 out of 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Maybe that is you, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with admitting if something just doesn't seem to be the same. Contact Petty Clinic, LowT.com, top left-hand corner. There's an email and phone number. Contact them, tell them I sent you. They will set you up. They will take care of the blood work, get the results, and Dr. Petty and his staff will be in touch with you. If your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level. Oh, by the way, sometimes your testosterone level can be too high, and that could create problems with your PSA. It could also create problems, by the way, based on the treatment you're getting with, even in men, estrogen levels getting to be too high, and you got to control that as well. Petty Clinic, LowT.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
McHarg end zone broken up and caught. Touchdown, Jordan Taylor.
Wow. It's time for our weekly segment with ESPN analyst Taylor McHarg.
I got to make one. I've said this a couple of times on the show, and I just said it in the chat room. That Oklahoma State-Texas Tech game is in Stillwater. For some reason, I thought it was in Lubbock. So Lubbock, Texas Tech on the road at K-State, and on the road in Stillwater back-to-back weeks. And Y-Zone, thanks for correcting me on that. Taylor McCarg, ESPN college football analyst, with us on Fridays at 4:30. Taylor, thanks for your time. I know you're doing Cincinnati this week, and we'll get to that in a minute. What are your thoughts about Kansas and also TCU in that game on game day, and the fact that both teams are 4-0 and 5-0?
Well, I think it's fantastic for both, and honestly, I think it's fitting, and it's kind of funny that Texas and OU, it's their last year likely in the conference. I think the way this shakes out in the offseason, there's a decent chance that this is their last year in the Big 12, and that both of them are down. And, this is the first year that since 98, that they're playing the Red River rivalry, and neither are ranked. But back to the team that has game day hosting this week, Kansas and TCU. I love the story for Lance Leipold in Kansas. I think at some point, I do think the music's going to stop because they haven't, they only played one top 60 defense, and that was Iowa State, and they didn't look great on offense. And they haven't really been tested much on the defensive side as well. And when they have, they've had a couple of performances where they gave up 30-plus. So I like TCU in this game to win. I think there's too much speed for TCU relative to Kansas. However, it's going to be a fantastic environment. This is the type of environment that you may see TCU roll out and try and do too much. And if they turn the ball over, Kansas has a chance in this game. But I just think it's good for the health of the conference that these two teams are playing well and at the top of the conference alongside Oklahoma State right now.
Taylor, the other one outside of Red River that's pretty interesting to me is Tech and Oklahoma State. Now, Tech is a team that's not going to go away. Oklahoma State, made a statement last week winning here in Waco. How do you think this one's going to shake out in Stillwater?
Well, to this point, Tech has not looked great on the road. If you go back to NC State earlier in the year, Donovan Smith really struggled in that first half. And then, on the other side for Oklahoma State, you hit the nail on the head. Impressive against Baylor on the road. The special teams play, obviously coming out of half, I believe it was, that was huge. And you have to have stuff like that when you play on the road. Oklahoma State is gettable if Tech plays well, but I don't trust Tech to this point in the season on the road. To me, they've looked like a totally different team when they're at Jones AT&T Stadium versus when they go on the road. So I like Oklahoma State here. And look, I think the top of the Big 12, the top 3 or 4 teams, anybody's gettable. There is not a team at the top that you say, okay, we got a clear front runner. I even think Texas has a chance if Quinn comes back this week and is healthy and they get a win against OU. Nobody's really talking about Texas. They still have a chance. So there's some parity in the top 3, 4, 5 teams in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, Taylor, I think we were saying earlier that Oklahoma, they're playing with fire. They're out of this bad boy if they lose tomorrow, basically with 3 conference losses. But you've mentioned it now a couple of times. Ewers will be back for UT. They've been playing well in his absence. Hudson Card did an admirable job, even though he wasn't 100%. And here they are, seemingly as the overwhelming favorites in this game tomorrow. Dylan Gabriel, I saw a picture of him in a suit, but it's kind of hard to imagine he'll play, but I guess you kind of have to keep that wild card in mind. So with all of that going on, how does Texas not win this game, or how does Oklahoma win this game tomorrow?
Yeah, I would say best on best, I think Texas has the advantage because OU's still banged up in some spots that don't include quarterback. And so even if Dylan Gabriel comes out and plays and Quinn Ewers plays, I like Texas in this game. I do not like, if I was a betting person, I do not like this number almost to 10 points for Texas. If you go back just historically in this series, it's a 1-score game, and it doesn't matter. Usually coming into the series, there's been a handful of blowouts here and there, but for the most part, this is a 1-score game. It's close. Going back to even in the COVID year, it tends to be a game that it's hard for one team to run away from. That being said, if Dylan Gabriel doesn't play and Quinn Ewers does play, you may see something pretty similar to what TCU just did to Oklahoma, because if there's one thing Steve Sarkisian does really well, one of the best in the country, it's create explosive plays. They've got the dudes on the outside to do it. They have an all-world running back. The skill talent is there. And if OU is struggling to keep up on the other side, This may turn into a blowout, a la what TCU just did to Oklahoma last week.
All right, so you have Cincinnati and USF this weekend?
That's right, Cincinnati, USF.
USF, obviously they're struggling. Jeff Scott's struggling. Gary Bohannon at quarterback. And Cincinnati, after what was not quite ready for that game with Arkansas, seems to have turned the corner a little bit. What do you see from Cincinnati right now?
I think Cincinnati's the clear favorite in the American Conference. Houston has obviously been disappointing. UCF did look interesting on Wednesday night. That was the best UCF look this year. But Cincinnati they have an elite defense. Jeff Scott, the head coach of South Florida, on our call with him this week, said this is the best all-around defense that he's faced since the 2017 Alabama defense. And I don't know if they're quite that good, but there are 3 or 4 guys on the Cincinnati team that are going to play in the NFL. Ivan Pace Jr. is leading the nation in tackles for loss, and it's not even close. He's unbelievable. On the other side, for South Florida, if you haven't been following South Florida and you're a Gary Bohannon fan and you kind of wrote them off, they're not very good right now, and I don't think I've ever seen a team have to deal with more in one season than they have. Just right off the bat, they had to relocate all of last week for a hurricane. They have 14 guys in their 2D scholarship players. 14 are hurt right now, with another 5 guys that are playing with broken wrists or hands and casts on their hands. And they just can't catch a break. From week 3 through week 9, they have one true home game because they got relocated last week. So I'm making all the excuses for them. Coach Scott again said this week, nobody cares. We got to play better. But I'll make the excuses for them. They have not had a single thing go their way this season. And I don't think it'll go their way tomorrow. They're 4 touchdown underdogs, and Cincinnati's just a much better team, and they get them at home for homecoming.
Jeff Scott's one of those coaches that needs a good finish. Otherwise, he's got to have to deal with some questions at the end of the year, if not before, especially going how coach and firing goes. Taylor, what do you think about some of the things that have happened coaches firing wise this season? Paul Chryst just last weekend. It could be Brian Harsin and Scott Satterfield in the next couple weeks. This is kind of crazy and hard to kind of wrap your arms around, but what have you thought about it so far?
Yeah, I'll say one thing real quick on Jeff Scott. Everything that I've heard and what I've read and the conversations with them, I think he's safe for at least this year. And I think he gets one more after if they struggle like they have this year, next year, then we'll see. But I think he's safe for one more. Paul Chryst was interesting to me, and I think it surprised me like it did everybody else. But I thought the athletic director's comments about how this was a decision for their vision of the next 3 to 4 years, meaning the new TV money that's coming in. They didn't feel like Paul Chryst was getting Wisconsin where they ultimately want to be, and that is a playoff team when the playoff expands. And whether Wisconsin, have they had that look in the mirror moment where you say, who are we really? This does not scream that to me, because at Wisconsin, if you average 9 wins a season, normally you'd be pretty happy with that. They're firing of Paul Chryst, and when they did it, to me says, we're going to try and go out and make a splash with who we hire next. It was interesting. However, I also thought it was interesting that he agreed to about half of what his buyout was. But this is going to be throughout college football moving forward, especially with the transfer portal era. If schools are ready to move on from a coach, there's no reason for them to wait through the season. You may as well fire early, especially if you're a program like Wisconsin or an Arizona State where you feel like you can get your pick of the litter. Fire early, go out, try and get your guys so that they can build a team, hit the ground running as soon as the regular season's over.
Taylor, did you get a chance to catch any of that UCF game by any chance against SMU?
I did. I watched almost all of that, and I was really surprised in a positive way at what Central Florida did. I was really underwhelmed by what SMU put out, especially in the second half. SMU, to me, was one of the dark horse teams to compete for the conference this season. But their last 3, and I'm thinking about Maryland, TCU, and now Central Florida, it hasn't been an easy stretch, but they have not answered the bell in really any of those 3 games.
Yeah, it seemed like UCF, that was nice, but golly, Tanner Mordecai, and it doesn't seem like he has any kind of anything around him, and he's running for his life as well, which, of course, for any quarterback, that's not a good deal.
Central Florida did a good job of getting pressure on him, and oftentimes it wasn't really bringing a fifth or sixth defender. UCF, especially in the second half, they got after him. The thing that was most frustrating to me was SMU's decision to go for it on fourth down at like their 37-yard line, I think is what it was, and they ran a bootleg that was the exact same play they'd run in the first half, and UCF was all over it. And I just thought it was not a great spot to do it. It was still a one-possession game. It wasn't a creative play call, and momentum shifted to Central Florida on that play, and it never came back. There was after that, it just turned into a rout.
Yeah, Taylor, I think UCF's got to really be kicking themselves for that loss to Louisville earlier in the year. They would be 5-0 right now and maybe getting a little more love nationally.
Well, they've found something in the downfield passing game in the past few weeks that they didn't against Louisville. I think John Rice Plumlee threw for like 140 yards in that game. All of his completions were underneath. He averaged like 4 yards of completion in that game. And since then, they have figured out a way. 5 on the outside. I think his last name's Baker. He's done a really nice job for them. And they have manufactured ways to get him the ball. And anywhere in college football, but especially in the American, you have got to figure out a way to get chunk plays in the downfield passing game. And that's one of the things that even Houston struggled with outside of Tank Dell. And I thought Central Florida had a similar issue because we know John Rice Plumlee can run the ball, but they have got to be able to drive the ball downfield, and they didn't do it against Louisville like you mentioned.
You mentioned Houston. Taylor, one more question about them. Do you feel like they can somehow right this ship?
Maybe, because they've got the pieces, but the thing that I worry about for Houston is what is the relationship like internally? I'm worried about, you see Dana, yelling at the crowd, and it feels like he's almost starting a war with their own fan base sometimes. And I know he's fiery, and sometimes he can be a love him or hate him type head coach. That's the only thing that I worry about for them internally is what does the locker room look like? Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that honestly none of us know. But if they come out next week and they get, or I guess it's tonight rather, if they get rolled by Memphis tonight, it may be a pack it up and they've just mailed in the rest of this season.
Yep. Thank you very much, Taylor. Appreciate your time. Former Rice quarterback, college football analyst for ESPN. He has Cincinnati and USF. Gary Bohannon this year. Thank you, Taylor. 3 touchdown passes. He's thrown 6 picks, 4 sacks. He doesn't have much time. He's run for 210 yards, averaging 5 yards per carry, and has scored a couple of touchdowns, but they are not very good.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to think from talking to some folks that Jeff's got to get a little bit more time. But, man, I don't see a lot of wins on their schedule, and as of right now, he is 4-22.
Yeah, and they've got to get that. Just the roster is not very good, and I don't see that getting
4-22.
Is the roster going to get that much better in a year? Is it?
Transfer portal can help. Right?
Yeah, but the thing about the transfer portal is like all those. I mean, it'd be great if you got first come, first serve, and like you could go just pick your groceries, and then everybody else has to wait their turn, like supermarket sweep or something. But that's not how it works. Like that. That's not likely to get them a bunch of major players unless they just got some NIL bundles that they've been stowing away and they're ready to, unleash on the world. Because besides that, yeah, I mean, you would think they'd have already addressed that somewhat. But, yeah, I mean, 1-8 in his debut year. That was COVID, so you give him a little bit of a break. Man, COVID really just screwed everything up, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like everything's different. Like, I don't know what eligibility is for guys.
No
I don't know. Like, should we count this against a coach or should this just be free reign on the record that year?
Do you know who else doesn't know their eligibility?
The players.
The players.
Yeah.
I had a couple of them. You were doing interviews. I'm like, hey, what year? I'll just say, what year are you? And they're like, I think I have another year. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1-8 that COVID year, 2-10 last year, and then 1-4 right now. And again, they don't appear to have a whole lot of winnable games in front of them the way they're playing right now. I do feel for Gary Bohannon. I know he's trying hard. It's not all on him. He's a good dude, so hope it turns around somewhat.
Yeah, if it was up to him, he'd rather still be here in Waco, right?
Yeah.
By the way, guys, I got an answer to a question you asked off the air, how close we are to 25,000 subscribers. We're 8 away right now.
All right,
wow.
8 subscribers away.
So call all of your buddies, friends, parents, relatives, whoever they might be, and tell them to join, subscribe to 365 Sports at nearly 25,000. Speaking of NIL.
And we do not beg for that on a regular basis, like even every show. But yeah, we get this close, and man, to get to 25K would be a tremendous milestone. So yeah, if you haven't hit subscribe just yet, we're here. You know, unlike maybe I guess other outlets. I mean, we're here every Monday through Friday, 3 hours a day. Got Paul during the game weeks doing. We're doing pregame. We'll do that again next week. So we got a lot. If you're just new to the game, I'm trying to let you know that we're here 15 hours of shows a week and, the weekends as well. So if you haven't hit subscribe, then by all means, please do, and we'd appreciate it.
Every day, 3 to 6. Paul's got the big one, too. He's got NFL fantasy football. We have the Bearcast. There's a lot of – I have the high school football podcast on Thursdays. By the way, speaking of NIL, Baylor and Startup Waco, another relationship, a part of their NIL – as they continue to try to add to who can be a part of supporting the nearly, 500 or so student athletes at Baylor. So there's that. If you want to go to Startup Waco online for more information. We need a break here. We do have at the 5 o'clock hour the voice of TCU, Brian Estridge, as they are in Lawrence. They flew out this morning. Kansas and both TCU tomorrow night, game day, and also that game is an 11 o'clock kick. And then also in the 5 o'clock hour, Sam Bradshaw breaks down and maybe looks at Baylor through the first 5 games of the year and Paul's top 5. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends. Ted Teague had a phone call with him earlier today before our show started. They have the award-winning service department run by Eric Upton, Gary Reynolds, Lacey Kauser. Also, General Sales Manager David Gray's sales team includes Tamara Jones, Roderick Chapman, Gerald Harris, and many others. The Jeep Freedom Days continues. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagney is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world.
Warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
All right, couple of things. Garrett, put up whichever one you want. This is from the Sports Business Journal. Pac-12 exclusive negotiating window with incumbents ESPN and Fox Sports has ended without a deal. The conference can now take its media rights to the open market.
Curious to see how that goes. Who is really interested in where it goes. There's a lot of talk about them trying to go full tilt with Amazon. I think that's maybe a bluff. You need to be on network television. The numbers prove it out. Being on the networks matters, and that's why people need to try and copy, even though they're not getting as much money, the Big Ten's playbook as much as they can. Get on the networks, the over-the-air networks, get on cable, get on everything. You have to have a plan across all mediums. But the Pac-12 is struggling right now to find, who they really are TV-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is like the death nail like some people will try to spin it as. I mean, this is just their exclusive negotiating window. That's all. Now they can have everybody a part of the party, and maybe there's somebody outside of their normal negotiating partners in ESPN and Fox that has interest, like in Amazon, as you said. But after watching that NFL game last night, that's just not going to be a regular viewing for me. Not the NFL on Amazon, but just going to Amazon to watch games, going to Prime. I'd much rather just pop on my cable. I know some people make the argument for YouTube TV or whatever the case may be. Streaming is good for some folks, and I'm one of those that, I'm going to stick to probably mostly cable for most of my games if I'm any of these conferences. So very curious with the open market now out there of what the legitimate interest of an Amazon is in the Pac-12 or what other potential partners there may be, because there's definitely been some bluffing going on, and maybe there's been some little hints dropped as well, and I can't wait to see what's true, because obviously whatever they end up signing is going to have ramifications across all of college football, because there's other conferences coming up for negotiations. Big 12 in a similar spot here in a couple years, and the Pac, we know how they've been. Like, this is an important decision about to be made.
It'll be interesting to see. It doesn't mean it's bad news, but I don't know enough about it. Bob Thompson has not yet made his comments. I haven't seen it from the others who cover the Pac-12, but that is out there as well. Paul, you had one more that you said, Garrett?
Yes, Fletcher's Corny Dogs at a staple of the State Fair. They are partnering with Bijan Mustardson.
This is great.
If you're there this weekend and you're at the Red River Shootout, you can get a corny dog at Fletcher's, which are delicious, and you can top it with some, which I don't know if it's delicious or not. I hope it is for Bijan's sake. Bijan Mustardson.
That makes all sorts of. We've seen Reese's make sense this week, and now this one, Bijan, of course, was that, and now Fletcher's mustard.
Which, look, if you are putting any condiment on a corn dog, it should be mustard. It's not ketchup, unless you're like 10 years old. But if you're over 10, it's mustard on a corn dog.
I don't know what this anti-ketchup thing is that so many people have.
I like it on French fries.
It's
just it doesn't go to hot dog.
Why not?
It ruins the flavor.
According to who?
It smothers the flavor.
Snobs. Food snobs.
I'm with you. Here's what I'll do. I'll put numerous things. I don't eat hot dogs very rarely. In fact, they just seem like they just mustard one day. Maybe I put just chili one day. Maybe chili and cheese one day. And if I even have a third or fourth within the next 20 years, I might just have ketchup.
You were fine on everything until you said just ketchup. I mean,
it might be the case. I mean, you like your steak.
Thank you, Don Berta. Paul is right.
And I like mine kind of medium well. Okay, not medium, but medium. All right, we have another hour to go. Brian Estridge, the voice of TCU Athletics on their game with Kansas. A couple of interesting nuggets on that, and how TCU smoked Oklahoma, and can they continue that? We'll also hear from Sam Bradshaw breaking down Baylor after 5 games and Paul's top 5. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace can help you find out what hurts you, whether it's a muscle, a ligament, or something else, or maybe find out if something is not where it's supposed to be. Yes, x-rays can do that, but doctors also need and want MRIs. And if your doctor suggests an MRI, and if you're around anywhere where you can drive to Waco in a reasonable amount of time, it's worth the time and how long you have to drive. Like Carl from Austin up here with his wife. Because an MRI, an ideal MRI, is $497. or less every single time. They don't trick you. $497 the next time it's $1,500. $497 or less every single time. They will help you with your insurance, and they will also get you inside their MRI machine. It is incredibly affordable and also very convenient. Their techs and specialists are amazing. The doctors are amazing. Dr. Rob Maxey, one of the partners, he is incredible as well, and you will get an answer from them very soon. $497 or less every single time at idealmri.com.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel. Luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Wide open room service again. One more man, touchdown. Gunnar Henderson, 62 yards on that one.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We're now joined by the voice of TCU Athletics, Brian Estridge, on 365 Sports. TCU in Lawrence, game day and all. Unbeaten Kansas, unbeaten TCU. Brian, did you circle this game on that schedule when it came out a while back?
Only after at Big 12 Media Days you told me that would be the case. No, never in our wildest imagination did we think that this would be a matchup of two unbeaten. This is the first time since 1960, David, that two unbeatens have met in Lawrence in October. That tells you a little bit about how long it's been for the Kansas Jayhawks. Yeah, I mean, it's an intriguing matchup. I still think that we don't know a ton about either team. I mean, I think we learned a little bit more about TCU against Oklahoma. I'm still not sure about Kansas just based on the schedule that they played. But nonetheless, all you can do is play the teams that are on your schedule, right? And they took care of business.
I'm going to guess you said 1960.
Yeah.
Was John Hadel at Kansas back in 1960?
Probably had to be. And what's interesting is it happened in the month of October. Kansas was 2-0. They were playing Syracuse, who was 1-0. So I guess the season started a little later back then as well. So it's the last time we've seen that happen in Lawrence.
You mentioned Oklahoma, and we'll get to Kansas and TCU, but they boat raced them. They had better athletes, more speed, and players running free. And maybe it was Oklahoma confused or lined up differently. Were you sitting there sometimes in amazement watching what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that TCU could have success against Oklahoma just based on film study, listening to the coaches and things of that nature. I thought they could do it, but you don't know until you know. And when you get in there and you see firsthand, like you said, guys running free, busted coverages on defense by Oklahoma, an offensive line for TCU that really controlled the line of scrimmage throughout the game. Then you start, and then candidly, the quarterback play of the Sooners. I mean, that's what shocked me, is that Oklahoma doesn't have a big time quarterback on the roster. And I know Dylan Gabriel had been okay early on. Got hurt in that ball, but he was, hey, it's not as if, he's a lefty. I'll use this analogy. It's not as if he was Jim Zorn, in that game. So I think that, I think once you got into the game, you saw, TCU's a better football team here. It feels like Brent Venables has taken 11 years or whatever it was at Clemson, where he could build his defense year after year after year after year, and he tried to cram it into 3 months in Norman, and you got players who aren't quite grasping it yet.
We saw Chandler Morris at his best moment when he just riddled and just frustrated the heck out of Baylor. He was dynamic, and then things slowed down. He got hurt earlier this year. He was the choice. Did him getting hurt, with all due respect to him, open this door?
Oh, yeah, no question. I shouldn't say – I'd like to think TCU could still be sitting at 4-0 with Chandler Morris at quarterback. But you're right. He gets hurt in the Colorado game after being named the starter. Had won the job, I'll be honest with you, Smokey. He had looked much better than Max, especially the last 3 weeks of camp. He had flat out won the job. And, and then Max gets the second opportunity, and he's just made the most of it. Now, they've also reworked the offense a little bit to benefit Max and his running ability. And I think kudos to Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, for doing that. We were joking about that in the office today, that, Max is on the Heisman Trophy watch list a little bit now for some folks. If he ends up in New York, because I think he was 4th on one list, if he ends up in New York, what does that say about Chandler Morris, who had beaten him out for the job? You look at it and you go, man, have you got 2 of the top 4 quarterbacks in the country sitting in Fort Worth?
How much do you think Max sitting down, watching, or losing the job may have somehow maybe made him better?
Yeah, I think it could have. I'll be honest with you. I think it's just coaching that's made him a lot better, too. I think that has made a huge difference for him. I think his technique is better. His fundamentals are better. He's getting rid of the football a lot quicker. He's not concerned about, getting his butt chewed out after every play. Hey, Sonny kind of operates with, okay, that one didn't work. Let's go to the next. Mm-hmm. And so I think that has calmed him down. I think he's got, good news is he's got a great offensive line in front of him. He's got some weapons at wide receiver, and they can run the football. That makes your quarterback better.
Speaking of running, and Max, of course, can do it himself as well. We saw that. Kendry Miller, what a great story from a Class 2A school, Mount Enterprise. Look at these numbers. 6, 7, 8, 9 yards a carry. Everyone seems to have a long touchdown. Everybody seems to almost have a touchdown. We knew that there were dynamic players for TCU. Are they even more dynamic than you thought?
Yeah, and I think the offense has a lot to do with that. I mean, I think the versatility of it, the fact that they do have so many weapons that it's not as if you can slough off a guy and double someone else because that guy's going to make you pay now. You're right, though. I mean, this is an offense that leads the country in big plays, averaging 8.9 yards a play. That's number one in America. And you're right. We look up, there's a 67-yard run, a 63-yard run, a 74-yard pass. And we're talking about just plays against Oklahoma. They had more yards on big plays, 4 or 5 big plays, than Oklahoma had for the day. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty fun to watch, I'll be honest with you. And I give a lot of credit to Sonny Dykes and Garrett Riley for the scheme that I think is really sort of, I think it's allowed guys to just go make plays. And you're seeing so many guys running free, too. That's what's interesting here early on. I don't think you'll see that against Kansas. I think they're much more fundamentally sound. But still, though, to see it here early on has been impressive.
You mentioned Kansas. They've won most of their games by outscoring people. And we know about the great start by Daniels. But they won an ugly game. And, we kind of debated on our show about, well, yeah, but if that's who they are, I just said, listen, they found a way to win the game. It was ugly. They can't rely on that week in and week out. But how much is it just KU now knows how to win?
Yeah, I think it's some of that. I really do. I think it's a culture change up there that Lance Leipold has put in place. I think the thing there is that he built a system around his players. He said, hey, we're Kansas. We got to do things a little bit differently. And, you look at what they're doing on offense. They've got a versatile quarterback who can run it and throw it. But they also kind of changed the way they're attacking the offensive line. This is an offensive line that's a little undersized, but the way they block is like playing an academy. It feels like we're going back to play Air Force here. And so I think he was wise in that, hey, maybe Kansas can't get the 6'7", 330 tackle, but we can get a 6'4", 305 that can move, and as strong as an ox. And so I think he's been real smart in that. And I think these guys have bought into that system. Here's the other thing, David, and you talk, they don't make mistakes. I mean, look at Daniels. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio since he became the starter last year, so I don't have the numbers in front of me, it's like 18-2. I mean, that's pretty impressive. If you got a young guy like that who can take care of the football like that, I mean, these guys are getting coached up.
You didn't know about TCU because of who they played. Colorado's not very good. Tarleton State, SMU. Again, we know how intense that rivalry is now. But then Oklahoma, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, back-to-back games that are ranked teams now that Kansas is ranked. I asked you about the importance of this game, that this would be the onslaught right here. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, we knew they would be better.
But you didn't think that after Oklahoma, all of a sudden you may have a tougher test against Kansas.
Right.
Yeah, you never thought that. Here's what we found out so far, I think, in the Big 12. There are no gimmies.
None.
There's not a gimme on the schedule this year. I mean, people look at Iowa State or West Virginia and say, but you know what? Hey, Frogs have to go to West Virginia. I know how hard that could be. Iowa State's terrifically coached. They'll figure it out. So there are no gimmies in this league. I think you get to some of the other leagues. We talk about this all the time in the SEC. You can find a win or two in the SEC. It's hard to just fall into one in the Big 12. I mean, you got to work your tail off to get that. And so I think that's what this team is realizing. And the one thing that I really liked about the approach that Sonny brings is that every game is the same. And it's not SMU was bigger or Oklahoma's bigger or, hey, don't worry about Tarleton. No, he treats every game the same. And it's not just coach talk. It's their approach. It's their preparation. It's everything. So I think that might be a difference maker for this team.
What Gary Patterson did there for the longest of time was fantastic. One of the best jobs in America. What he did year in and year out with some ups and downs, but also some amazing games. Is it just because they needed a change? I don't want to use the word toxic. You can, and I'm not saying you will, but everyone kind of just got tired of that whatever attitude or atmosphere was inside that building.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it has been it has been remarkable, David, how folks are smiling and happy and enjoying themselves, and the atmosphere among the staff. And I'm not talking about the football staff as much as I'm talking about the support staff. You know, I think it's almost been a freeing, if you will. And I think these players, you hear them talk, and they kind of say that. And to me, I think that to me has been the biggest difference. Is that hey, Gary had an amazing run here. But you know how it is. It's why the Methodists have things figured out. They move preachers every 3 years. You know, you get stale. They get tired of hearing the same message over and over again. And I think that was the case here. And I think it was. I just think it was time.
We'll see on the road against Kansas. We'll know about both teams, and that's what's great about the schedule is every week brings some evidence, and no one, I don't think, is going to just separate because, as you said, there is no gimme. Brian, have fun in Lawrence. College game day, TCU in Kansas, and this is 360.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Sam Bradshaw of Sikkim365.com.
Welcome back again. This 5 o'clock hour continues to go. Paul Catalina's top 5 is right around the corner. We have Midway football tonight on 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio as they host Temple. Sam Bradshaw, S11, college football analyst, joins us, a part of Sikkim365.com and our show on 365 Sports. Sam, thanks for your time. Dave Aranda's mentioned this, and so have some of the others, about self-scouting themselves, looking at trends and maybe having a chance to look at what they see. I would think that they do that anyway, but during an off week, do you expect to see much of a change on either side of the football?
You don't see a giant change in terms of the scheme overall, and thanks for having me on. But more so trying to look at yourself as if you were an opposing coach game planning against yourself. When you have a little bit more time between games, you can have a little bit more of an opportunity to dive into things like this. And a classic example of a team that didn't self-scout well enough was back in 2014 when Ole Miss played TCU in the Peach Bowl. TCU knew exactly which way they were going to run based off where the tight end was lining up before the snap. So by the time the game rolled around, they were slanting their defensive line basically every time based off where that tight end lined up. The running game went nowhere. They constantly had Bo Wallace in 3rd and long, and an easily avoidable mistake ended up taking their chance of victory away. And that's exactly what these coaching staffs are looking to avoid. Maybe not quite as dramatic as that example, but what are some of the tells at the poker table on what you're trying to do? Is there something on film that when the ball's on this hash in this down and distance situation, are you entirely predictable with what you're going to do on your 3rd down calls in that situation, on your 2nd down calls? How do you adjust for your own tendencies, and how do you build in some things off of those looks to potentially take advantage of a team that would try and scheme against those?
Outside of looking at themselves and figuring that out, about themselves, what do you think they are most pressed or concerned with? What do you think is most top of mind as they enter the bye week in terms of what they saw against Oklahoma State and what they now know about themselves after a handful of ball games?
I think pass defense has to be chief among those. I mean, their base running defense was outstanding against Oklahoma State. You had them devoting resources to the passing game and still holding up against the actual called runs that Oklahoma State had. Maybe one of Spencer Sanders' runs was a called run, but the vast majority of those were scrambles. So that's pass rush. That's rush lane integrity. And then also, how do you adjust your coverage? If it's a technique issue or if it's a scheme issue, you have to do something better to get these quarterbacks off schedule. They're completing the FBS, so every game but Albany, opponents that Baylor's faced have been completing about 65% of their passes against that Baylor secondary. And what that is a recipe that even if you don't give up the big plays doing that, you're going to constantly put yourself in 3rd and medium, 3rd and short, which makes it really difficult to get off the field. And that's got to change, because if they can do that, Baylor's offense is very, very effective at staying on the field, getting yards, and then getting into scoring position and capitalizing on that. If they can get some quick stops and keep these teams out of converting on 3rd or 4th down, you have the ability to get them off the field. They don't see the ball for another few minutes. Then wash, rinse, repeat, and the team has barely had a chance to touch the ball, and then all of a sudden the game's half over and they're down 3 scores.
So when we went into this season, and now, of course, there's all this, we have, evidence. Some of the things that were concerns are still concerns, aren't they?
Absolutely. And youth at the skill positions on the offensive side, you've had some guys step up and become pretty solid answers. Richard Reese, for instance, at running back, and then Blake Shapen at quarterback. Both have exceeded the expectations people had for him, but you've also had some injuries. You've definitely had Monterey Baldwin step up at receiver, but there's a lot of guys that have to step up. They have to have more consistency, and you also want to get healthy. For all the good that Reese and Squirrel Williams do at running back, at the end of the day, they're pretty light for running backs. So getting a guy like a Tate McWilliams back who gives you a little bit bigger body, but somebody who also understands in this wide zone scheme where to cut, where to get downhill, and can do that efficiently, that's going to be something that will really help them in some of these shorter yardage situations where all of a sudden you've got a 4th and short where you would have had a first down, or all of a sudden you're just right on the goal line instead of punching it in. That's something that I think can be a benefit, but you knew going in you were going to be very, very short on experience with a lot of those skill position guys outside of Ben Sims and Drake Dabney. And it's been the case so far, and you got a little bit of growing pains with those guys.
So a couple weeks ago, I had Smokey ask Aranda about wide receiver in particular, and he gave a great answer about why they decided to not dip into the transfer portal. Not sure if you heard that or not, Sam, but is it surprising to you that they didn't do that now in hindsight? And I know we have the benefit of hindsight, but is that at all surprising, or was that basically just adding somebody who would have been, probably similar to what they already have on campus?
Well, anytime you're doing any kind of roster management at the college or pro level, whether it's recruiting, whether it's the draft, you're looking primarily at what's available relative to what I have. Mm-hmm. And, they went after a couple high value guys, but they didn't land them. And they weren't going to waste a scholarship on somebody that wasn't going to be tangibly better than what they have, particularly when you have so many young guys with a lot of high upside potential sitting on campus. So it's unfortunate they weren't able to land one of the key guys they were targeting. But if you can't get those guys and you're not convinced the guys that are that next rung down would really be much of a benefit, you're probably better off saving that scholarship where you can put it towards something that's going to help your team a little more.
Yeah, and he mentioned, and Craig mentioned this as well, that he said, why not see if we can, renovate, rejuvenate, or maybe rebuild the guys we have on campus, which is admirable. But Presley makes a big play against Iowa State. We saw, obviously, Monterey Baldwin and what he's done. Cameron, it seemed like, had a couple of moments as well. Is there someone else you're expecting to come pop out of that group, or are those the three you expected?
Well, it really comes down to who's actually impressing in practice, because if you list off a lot of the names in that receiver room and you told me that 2 weeks from now, such and such guy is going to go off for a big game, hit some deep balls, and nobody's going to catch him, with very few exceptions, none of those names would surprise me, whether it's Winfield, whether it's Neighbors, whether it's Bonner, whether it's Ellis, whether it's Jones. None of those names would surprise me. It's just who's got the route running down, who has the confidence of the coaches, who has the confidence of Chapin, and who's actually going to trot out on the field and deliver.
Sam, were you surprised that they did not go to the well in the run game more? I know you touched on the lack of having the big physical running back that can give you some more carries outside of Squirrel and Reese, but it's easy to say in real time of like, hey, they just popped off 3 yards, why not run that again? Or did it make sense kind of the way they decided to maneuver around on offense based on what you saw?
For the most part, I think they did a pretty good job calling plays. And 37 yards per drive against Oak State's defense is a pretty solid number against a defense like theirs. And you're going to lean into the pass a little bit more against them because tactically it's somewhat similar to what you saw from Baylor in that kind of 2011 to 2014 time frame where they weren't all that big on defense, but they were aggressive. They were willing to risk single coverage occasionally in order to try and inflict some negative plays. And when you have teams like that, you'll be tempted to throw more than you would otherwise. That being said, there was a pretty good stretch during the middle of the game where they got away from the run. And it ended up being much more of a drop back game, which did not play to their strengths, rather than staying balanced, allowing some of that play action to do some of the protection for you and drawing those safeties up in a way that gives you some clear looks. I think when they were able to settle down, get kind of back to their base offense, build around that run, even if it's not ripping off 10 yards here, 5 yards there, even if it's just the consistent smaller gains that you're getting, as long as you're forcing those safeties and linebackers to migrate over to where those gaps are going to be in that wide zone scheme, that sets an awful lot of things up. If a safety has to fly over to be a force player on the run, he can't be deep. If a linebacker has to move over laterally in order to fill an A gap that's now 5 yards to the left of him, he's not going to be able to go and defend a hitch route 5 yards to the right of it. So I think getting back to the run and being able to balance that out, that is where this offense is at their best. This is not an offense that wants to run 100 times. This is not an offense that wants to throw 100 times. They prefer to stay pretty close to balance because that's where you put the most conflict on the defense. And that's what all this formation changing, pre-snap motion, and the fact that they have a very lateral run scheme is designed to do. They're trying to put your pass responsibility and your run responsibility in as much geometric conflict as they can without making things too complex for their own guys or without being obvious about it.
As you saw the play develop with Richard Reese on that 4th down, and I think it was a yard inside the Oklahoma State 5 or whatever it was, and he tried to bounce it outside because all his life he's probably been able to do that from Belleville High School and even sometimes now. Abram Smith, of course, we know with the veteran and the kind of player he was, would have stuck that left foot in the ground and run over somebody. Did Richard Reese make the wrong decision there? It's part of being young, but your thoughts about that particular play?
I think the kid is young, and as you mentioned, was probably used to being the most athletic kid on the field. And I think the play, ideally, you would take it outside if it was blocked right, but you got to know the situation and you got to get what's there. And, he'll live with it and he'll learn. A lot of them do. But you're absolutely right. Abram Smith is a guy that absolutely would have gone north-south. And I immediately think back to the play in the Sugar Bowl where he caught a little swing pass and he had a chance to try and make the corner miss. And he wasn't having any of it. He basically, you saw his eyes light up and he says, I'm going for this guy, and basically tried to run over this little corner instead of trying to run around him and make a bigger play. He's definitely getting north-south whenever he can.
What do you think about the way Blake Shapen played?
I think Shapen played really well. He had the late interception when they were down where he passed up a check down that probably would have been open to Ben Sims that was wide open. He probably could have gotten out of bounds and saved some of the clock at the time. But aside from that, and aside from learning how far downfield he needs to be before he slides, which is just more of another experience thing.
Is it not crazy how hard that is? Well. Is it not crazy how hard that is for him to slide, Sam? Sorry to cut you off, but it's just wild to me.
It is, until you remember that they don't have the little yellow line that everybody on the screen is seeing. And, mentally they may be thinking, oh, yeah, I slid here because that's where I'm getting up after I slide. Instead of remembering, oh, right, they do it based off where I start. Mm-hmm. So you have a little bit of that going on. But Shapen's been outstanding. You have a guy that's completing close to 70% of his passes. Really the only bad interception he had would have been at the end of this game. I mean, the one against Texas State was not great, but it was also on a 4th down. So if you throw it out of bounds, it's even worse. You really only have 2 interceptions that were his fault. The other one was right off the hands and thrown away from the defender where it could have been a pretty decent play. And he made some absolute dime throws. The deep post to Monterey Baldwin against Oklahoma State was absolutely perfect. And he's able to throw off balance. He's able to get a little bit going scramble-wise. And he's got just enough running ability to make you account for him, as Texas State learned off of a 35-yard touchdown.
Sam, when I mentioned the receivers, I didn't mention Gavin Holmes. It wasn't to overlook him because he was a big part of that game, and he's had some nice moments this year. Oh, man, it just seems like the drop early in that first drive, not to point my fingers or our fingers at him, and, of course, the deflected pass, which was maybe not perfectly thrown. Who in the end, in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, when we say a clutch play in a game that they had to win and they did, was made by which receiver?
If I'm thinking explosive play, I'm probably thinking Baldwin. If I'm thinking clutch play, I got to think Gavin's going to bounce back. And I also got to think that Hal Presley, with his ability to win at the point of attack and at the point of a catch, I think those are two of the guys that are going to be pretty big candidates for you.
Do they know their identity? That you hear the wide zone. Last year we knew the identity, and you mentioned this quite a bit, a little bit. You kind of touched on it. But do they know their identity? I mean, is their identity what they want it to be? Is that what it is right now?
I don't think it's as clearly defined as it was last year, but I think they do have their identity. I think they do know who they are. I think right now you've been a revolving door of who's available this week, who's not available this week.
Right.
You know, you've not only had that at the skill positions, but you've also had that up front. Khalil Keith has been gone all year, but also Grant Miller missed some time. You've also had Ben Sims out. You've had Kelsey Johnson out at times. Who do we actually have, and how do we play to their strengths? And, you know, you have a lot of young running backs, and in a scheme like the wide zone, it's not necessarily how big and fast you are. It's how well do I know where to cut? A guy who's maybe a tenth slower in the 40, but can get physical and can get north-south is a really productive runner in this scheme, as the Mike Shanahan coaching tree in the NFL can attest to. How many sixth-round or undrafted players ended up being extremely productive running backs for them? You know, you definitely have the potential for that. I think they've got that identity because it's ingrained. We're going to run the wide zone. And let's be clear, other than a absolutely miserable first half in Provo, this offense has been productive all year. Statistically, they've moved it down the field. Now, they're not going to be winning anything on total yards because they're not a high tempo, high number of plays, high number of possessions team. That's not who they are. But when you look on a per drive basis, this offense has been productive. They haven't been dominant, but they've been productive.
Sam, we had some, I guess like maybe an Oklahoma State fan or two that were like, man, I wish you guys were talking more about Oklahoma State. And I finally just said, like, hey, I give them their props for winning the game. Spencer Sanders played well. They made very timely plays, and they made far less mistakes, especially on special teams. I give them credit for all that, but like I still don't know how good they really are, because I feel like that was a big missed opportunity for Baylor. I think they're good, but I don't know, like Big 12 favorite because they beat the Bears. Where do you sort of stand on the Cowboys after seeing them for a full 4 quarters last week?
Before I comment on the Cowboys, the part of the game that really surprised me was the kickoff returns.
Yeah.
Not that they had a couple big returns. It's the fact that they had a couple returns. I mean, Rauschenberg is usually getting close to 90% of his kickoffs for touchbacks.
Yep.
So the fact they even had 2 to return, much less 2 to return for 50-plus yards, is shocking. And without that, I think Baylor probably wins that game. But, you know, you live and learn. Mm-hmm. I think Oklahoma State's a team that I don't think they're a dominant running team, but I think they're intentional about it, and it helps them open up a lot. Spencer Sanders is a very high upside quarterback that when pressured can cough it up a little bit, but he's got a strong arm, he's accurate, and he's very athletic, and he's got a really good receiving core around him. They're young, but they're stepping up for him. Defensively, I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago. I think they're a little young at linebacker, and I think they're a little young at a couple of those safety spots and corner spots. But I think they're going to be good enough that if that offense continues to take a step forward from where they were last year, they could easily end up in Arlington. I don't think they're a college football playoff contender, but I definitely think that's a team that can win the conference. But I think there's about 5, maybe 6 teams in in the Big 12 this year that you can say that for. You know, it's just a very wide open league. And I understand why you don't know what you're dealing with Oklahoma State. They played Central Michigan and Arizona State, neither of which are looking dominant right now, before they played Baylor. So you need a little more time to see what you're dealing with.
Baylor's in that group still, right? Even despite the loss, they can still dig themselves out like they did last year after the loss in Stillwater?
I think there'll be at least one participant in the conference title game with 2 conference losses. So if Baylor can go 7-1 down the stretch, they'll have a pretty good shot. Or if they do better, of course. I think they've got a chance to do it, but they've got to get a lot better in pass coverage, and they've got to do a lot better at just staying healthy. you can't afford too many more injuries, and you've got to get guys back. You've got to get that cohesion. They're young, and you will expect them to improve, but they have to get that on track and buttoned down for the home stretch. And to an extent, that's what happened last year. Baylor in December was playing infinitely better than what they had been playing in September. I mean, remember last year, for all the hand-wringing over how Baylor was doing this September, they had a one-score game in San Marcos last year.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And it was panic even after that. I was like, what's going on? Especially after 2-7. All right, Sam, one more thought. They're in Morgantown Thursday of next week. They've never won there. They haven't played there a lot, but they haven't won there. Your thoughts about what you see with Neil Brown, West Virginia, C.J. Donaldson, the running back who's a banger. He's not going to play. And your thoughts about scouting them, at least kind of a heads up.
Right. West Virginia is a tougher team than their record. Neil Brown has had a lot of hot seat rumors going into the season, and whoever made this schedule did him no favors. It did a lot of favors for fan service and the fact the Backyard Brawl is back, that Virginia Tech is on the schedule, and that you've had Kansas and you've also had Texas, which hypothetically are winnable, but 4 of their 5 games were Power 5 teams and good ones for the most part. So they're not the best record you're going to see, but they're a tougher team than you expect there. JT Daniels has upgraded their quarterback room pretty significantly, but they've had a lot of guys leave in the transfer portal. So it'll be interesting to see as I get a little further into film study exactly how good these guys are.
Sam, great stuff, buddy. Thank you, as always, for what you do in breaking things down, what you write on the site, Sikkim365.com, and the segment you spend with us as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sam Bradshaw, S11, college football analyst for Baylor, but also college football in general. We appreciate his time, and coming up next, we'll wrap up the week and the day and the show with Paul Catalina's Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
It's It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross wrapping up the 5 o'clock hour is Smoking Craig off to Midway. I am soon to join them. Very soon to join them. Rapidly, I will be joining them. Mm-hmm. Believe you me, I will be there on the way. But Garrett takes us through with the top five storylines of the weekend. And Garrett, I enjoy doing these. You're a fresh voice on the top five on Fridays. I enjoy the banter we'll have back and forth on this. Number 5, top 5 storylines of the weekend. Can Texas A&M even put a scratch on Alabama? I don't know. Haynes King is probably going to play quarterback unless broken fingers don't mean you're sitting out as a quarterback on your throwing hand anymore. I don't know. But I just think that even with Jaden Milroe probably in there for Alabama, that this has worked out for Alabama swimmingly. Jimbo Fisher, really poured gasoline on this game in the summer and then has seemingly sucked it all out on his own with the way the offense is playing. They're mired in controversy and anger there at A&M right now because of the way that this season is going. And, he's, like I said yesterday or on Wednesday on the top 5, there's no, he's not on the legitimate hot seat, but if he didn't have the big fire insurance policy that he does.
I think there's definitely some cause for concern there, but I don't think the outcome of this game is really going to impact what Jimbo's future looks like. Unfortunately, you're coming into the situation if you're both teams where neither one of you are probably going to have your starting quarterback. But when you look at the situation, I thought when Milroe came in last week against Arkansas, I was like, oh, man, I think the Hogs might get him. And he kind of got into his rhythm. He got off to a slow start. But I think Alabama just has so much talent across the board that they can make up for not having, their Bryce out there to do work. But I just don't think and I was thinking about this morning. Is this a situation where A&M kind of selfishly says, well, Texas could hang with them?
Yeah.
Can we? Does that even become up on the radar? I'm not sure, but I just think there's too much talent in Alabama right now for A&M to even have a chance in this game.
Well, Texas has playmakers on offense over just one or two guys, and that's what kind of kept them in the game. And their quarterback play in that game, when they were in control of it, was much better with Quinn Ewers than A&M's has been. So, yeah, that's a great point. I don't know what we're going to see from this game at all. I mean, it wouldn't totally shock me to see A&M, fight and scratch and claw and see this be a close game.
Well, they should.
I mean, yeah, they should, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see this be a wood chipper game.
I'm leaning more towards blowout.
Yeah, me too. I'm leaning more towards blowout. Number 4, why is Notre Dame almost a 10-point favorite against BYU? I don't understand this. Look, they had a great game against North Carolina 2 weeks ago and then the bye. BYU got roughed up against Oregon. They've not looked great in the game since then, but they've won and they've played tough. I picked BYU in this game. I'm standing by that pick. I understand that they're a 9.5-point dog. I don't see it. I don't see it from Notre Dame. I hope this game is great. I hope that whoever wins it is not 9.5 points. I hope the spread is completely busted. But something's going on here that I don't get, and Vegas does, and it worries me as a person who calls myself a pundit. I don't know what I'm missing, and I don't want to look dumb, but I still think I'm going to lean towards, if these teams are pretty evenly matched on both sides of the ball, who has the better quarterback? Hands down. it's Jaron Hall and BYU.
It is. I kind of go back to this, and I don't know if Notre Dame's kind of getting the pass for it's the brand, it's Notre Dame, where, Marcus Freeman's coming in there. There's a whole new era, a new aura around that. And I think some of it might have to do, if you go back to week 1, where Ohio State didn't just obliterate them. They held Ohio State to just 21 points. And then for BYU's perspective, it was like they came in, they looked really good against Baylor, and then they just laid an egg against Oregon. I feel like that's kind of impacted as well. And when you look at BYU's past 2 games, they've kind of struggled with Utah State and Wyoming. So I feel like that's probably impacting this more than what's on the field from Notre Dame. I like BYU in this matchup. I think they have the more talented roster, which is kind of weird to say. But man, you're right. There's something fishy here that we're unaware of.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something I don't know that they do, and that's why they are who they are, and I'm me. Yeah. So like that's fine. And look, if I have to eat crow in this one, I'll eat crow. But I'm very nervous about my pick of Kansas over TCU. But big one too with Royden this week. I said, look, I'll stick with you. I'm not picking against Kansas until they lose, in Kansas at home. So
that's fair.
I didn't know what TCU was legitimately until 5 minutes into that Oklahoma game, and I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But Kansas proved a lot to me last week in winning a game 14-11 as well.
No, I mean, that kind of showed that we can do this with our defense as well. It's not all on Jalen Daniels to kind of carry the show there. So I think that kind of showed the grit of the team. And I've said it before, but I mean, the identity of Lance Leipold. I mean, you're going to win ugly, man. It's just what it is.
Well, however he's got to do it. He's figuring out a way. He's figuring out a way. Number 3, this one's for you, Garrett, specifically tailored to you. Can LSU score enough to stop Tennessee? I don't think so. I think even on a bad day, Tennessee's going to score more points. LSU is coming along, but they have to tell Jaden Daniels, like, hey, buddy, go be a super athlete. Go ahead and throw the ball. He's great at, like, third down and long. He is a weapon on third down and long.
Yeah.
Second down and long, he's not. Like, let's move that up and down.
I do not think LSU can hang with them scoring. Yeah. I think if LSU wants to win this game, they're going to have to slow it down. They're going to have to make it extremely ugly, and you're going to have to rely on your backs to carry the load, and you're going to have to create some turnovers. I think that Tennessee's going to be in a situation where they've only played one road game, and it really, it was at Pitt. And granted, I'm not going to take anything away from Pitt and their crowd. It is what it is, but it's not Death Valley. And now, if this was at night, I know it'd be a totally different story, but I just saw a while ago, the gates are open at 9 and the beer's on sale in the Bayou. So if they slow this game down, they can hang, but they cannot match Tennessee scoring. They just can't do it.
No, and there's only a few places in the country that can compare to Death Valley.
Yeah.
And even the other Death Valley isn't, in my opinion, one of them.
No.
It's great. And it's a tough place, but it is not. Like, there is something different about that. Like, there's a few, like the Swamp is like that a lot. Kyle Field's like that. The Big House, the Horseshoe.
That's about it.
I mean, there's some other loud ones, but consistently just nutso.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Neyland Stadium now. Like, if they get good again.
Well, it's been a while. They're hungry for it.
Maybe they can get back to that, but, there's nothing. I mean, Number 2 is UCLA for real. We're going to find out this week. Okay, they already beat Washington, so that's a tick in their column. But beating an Oregon team that can really kind of get dirty and muscle you up. Kyle Whittingham likes that, rock hard, like just like status. Like, he really likes that kind of a game. Cam Rising had a really good game against Oregon State last week. The defense had a lot of turnovers. Can UCLA keep that going? I'm interested to see, because if Chip Kelly's back on the scene, that's interesting. That's something I don't know if I can get behind. I'm not a Chip Kelly apologist or fan.
Right.
But he's always entertained me. I'll tell you a quick Chip Kelly story. So, covering the Oregon versus Ohio State CFP, first CFP championship game at AT&T Stadium. Ohio State wins. I was in auxiliary media. And so that was up on the upper deck. They had some seats, like tables in kind of what would be the standing room only areas, which they didn't do for that game. at least not in that spot. So I was up there, and so I get on the elevator, and it was me and somebody else, and then a woman I know named Kristen Keith who freelances now, and we're on the elevator going down to the press conference, and it stops on the suite floor, and Chip Kelly gets on, and there was one Oregon reporter on. So, hey, coach. Because he wasn't coaching then. It was Mark Helfrich. He was just there for the game to watch the guys that he recruited. He was not happy. He was not happy. And couldn't even muster up a pleasantry. And as he walked off the elevator, he saw Urban Meyer go this way, and he went that way. And I heard him go, Meyer.
We all feel it. We all feel it, Chip.
Yeah. I don't think he was so mad that they lost, but he was mad that they lost to that guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he was mad that they lost to that guy overall. So, but yeah, Garrett, do you think UCLA is real?
I don't. I mean, I think that they're kind of like the benefits of their schedule. I think it's nice to see them, having, especially with all of the angst and animosity around them for going to the Big Ten. It's kind of nice to see them come out and not lay an egg and actually put together a successful season. I really like the play of their quarterback. Their offense is fun to watch. I think that kind of goes back to anywhere Chip Kelly has been, whether it was even with the Eagles. While that whole situation failed, at times their offense was fun. Mm-hmm. So I think he's back in his realm. He's starting to put the pieces together, and I'm interested to see what he can do once they get into the Big Ten and they get that Big Ten money flowing. Does that help with the recruiting? What can that do? Because if he can stay there and keep this up, he could actually turn them into a power. It is crazy to think that we can be sitting here saying UCLA and USC could be in the hunt for, making a college football playoff berth, but both of them have been irrelevant for so long.
Yeah, absolutely, especially UCLA.
Yeah.
I mean, UCLA they've not been really relevant since Troy Aikman was there.
Yeah, they have. Well, yeah, because in my lifetime, not in my lifetime, they haven't been relevant, really.
Yeah, they've had 2, maybe 3 good seasons in my lifetime, and ones where like, oh, this is a good team.
Yeah.
But not really at all. Number 1, who gets fired on Sunday? My money is on maybe both these guys in the graphic, and I think Brian Harsin, it'll be interesting to see, do you keep him through the bye week so it's just smoother then, or does Auburn use the excuse that they might get blown out by Georgia? And they might not. We don't know. Although Georgia's gotten a couple scares a couple weeks in a row, and Auburn seems to be reeling right now, so I don't know if this is a game where they're going to hang, even in a big rivalry game, or are they going to use the loss to Georgia, however bad it might be? And if it's really bad, then they can really, we're just so far away from Georgia. We have to do this. When you've given the guy less than 2 years.
I kind of think he gets a pass in this one. I think Georgia is so dominant that 95% of the teams that go up against them are going to get beat. And when you look at on the Louisville side, they got to play a Virginia team who's 2-3. So I feel like if Louisville goes out and gets beat by Virginia, that's more cause for a fire on Satterfield's standpoint than what you're looking at with Harsin. I think Harsin's gone after this year, but I think this kind of buys him a little bit more time because they don't have bad losses in a sense. You got beat by number 10 Penn State. Then you got beat by LSU last week, who's kind of starting to find themselves a little bit. And if you get beat by Georgia, that's Georgia. So I think he's got a little more leeway in that situation than what you're seeing in Louisville. I can be totally wrong. Both of them can be canned. But if we're just looking at this, I'm going with Satterfield getting the can.
Yeah, well, both of them are without the athletic directors that hired them right now. So they're kind of in the same boat. Like, when I did the top 5 on it the other day, I kind of said, one was Chernobyl, one was 3 Mile Island. It's not that you're kind of splitting hairs on the differences here. One happened in a country that was more apt to deal with it. That was it. That's the only difference in those nuclear meltdowns. All right, that's going to do it for us. We're on the stream at 7:00 on SicEm365.com. If you'd like to listen to the midway game and no pregame or postgame show this week because Baylor's not playing. But we'll be back on Monday here on SicEm 365, Radio 365 Sports with a full show recapping what's bound to be another crazy week in college football. For David Smoak, for Craig Smoak, for Garrett Ross, Jag McKenzie, Jacob Wilson, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, and a cast of thousands. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.